Klickitat County Commissioners. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, noting that all three commissioners are in session.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Business agenda.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the business agenda with one add-on under new business being the letter of support for the Hood River White Salmon Bridge.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 7th, 2024.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from May 14th, 2024.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Aye, sorry.
And Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from May 21st, 2024 as presented.
I will second that motion as well.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. So we'll move on to public comment. If you're in the room, please come forward if you'd like to speak when called on and let us know who you are and where you're from. And the same with Zoom if you raise your hand. We're going to start in the room with Mr. West this morning.
I suppose you're fortunate that the bailing ended early this morning. So I'm going to make some comments. First off, I want to make it clear, I may be very derogatory of your judgment, but I'm not attacking your character. Keep that in mind. Of course, it concerns the jail. Now, we had a couple of very unfortunate incidents with Mr. Howdapat and Miss George. They're set in stone. They happened. They'll be dealt with. I do not find that those incidents, independent, is cause to automatically concern ourselves with closing the jail. To determine whether we should close the jail or not really needs a full, in-depth investigation of where the jail is operating at this point. Volunteering to close our jail, do you think the litigators are going to suddenly say, yo, that's really nice, we're going to drop our lawsuit? Oh, well, we'll take a lot less money because you closed your jail. No. I've been told that we're afraid to have an evaluation done because that might increase public records requests, which might increase our liability. No, our liability is going to be completely independent of that. Our liability in those cases has nothing to do with where we're at now. I have never done in a corporate study made a decision without the thorough and complete background audit of where you are. There are people who would say, well, they don't want the study done because it might tell them there is no cause to close the jail. I'll back up a little bit. I'll back up a long ways. Archduke Ferdinand was murdered. Was that reason for World War I? But that was the spark that caused it. The turmoil that you unleashed upon our valley and how you handle this situation, I have never seen anything come from this body that created more contention and havoc and ill will, not because of whether it should or should not be open or closed, but because of the tactics which were used, the utter lack of process in determining that. It was terrible. March 29th. I'm sorry, you two testified immensely on behalf of the plaintiffs on how horrible we needed to shut down the jail immediately. You helped the litigation of the plaintiffs. That's all there is to it. If I was that attorney, I'd take that 10 minutes worth of tape and play it in front of that jury. One of the positive things that came out of that is you two made Dan Christopher look like an absolute genius. Subsequent events have proven how right he was of why he voted the way he did on that day. You obviously did not have the information to make a rational decision to close it. I know you gave the intent to close it by April 12th, 11th, because you assumed the negotiations with Norcor would be done. Obviously, those did not connect at all. I ask you, once again, I understand you're now going to hire a consultant to help with the setting up of the commissioners handling the jail. Maybe you should use that man. Matter of fact, he'd be derelict in his duties if he did not give you a full evaluation of where we're at. Because if you don't know where you're at, you can't determine where to go. Any decision you make without that is invalid.
Thank you. Zoom this morning. Is there anyone online? Yes. Good morning, Gabrielle.
Yeah, I'm going to clap back a little bit on that recent comment. The idea that you're just going to clarify what happened to those victims in that jail as an incident is complete and utter whitewashing. What happened in that jail was a loss of life. And what happened in that jail was a disregard for an individual's lively life in that space of the jail cell. And the idea that that's not the reason that you're in the space you're in today as a county concerning that jail is complete and utter ludicrous. And to blame you, the commissioners, for what is on the table as an independent agency for a sheriff that was voted in to be responsible for this space with a $5 million budget, that is where the fault lies. All of the situations that you're concerned about with the jail, the county, the commissioner's decision is about how a jail is run and the people that are in it and what you're doing in the space. And to blame the commissioners is vile. I am going to also say that I find it abhorrent that the sheriff continually attacks the chairwoman and the commissioner Anderson about their leadership and their decisions that they are making, and calls you power hungry when this sheriff literally said he would arrest county workers and elected officials. And he has the audacity and hypocrisy to call you power hungry. It's disgusting. And the pushback is real on attacks to the chairwoman. It's disgusting. And it's also the height of hypocrisy that a board member, a commissioner would actually use professional temperament, that would come out of his mouth to describe a candidate for a position. The hypocrisy of that use of language when this commissioner has a history on video of his lack of professional temperament. So this jail situation will be a long-running discussion, and the people that come in to assess it are the ones who will come out on, allowing the county to see what we're dealing with. But I think that the spin, and I think that the idea that people are using propaganda against the commissioners when they're trying to do their jobs just needs to be pushed back hard. Thank you for your time and good luck with everything. And I know this is a difficult time for the county, but honestly, stop with the propaganda. That would be helpful in the beginning. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Gabby. Anyone else in the room this morning? Nope. Online. Is there anyone else on Zoom? I thought I saw a second one a minute ago. Two six six two.
Yes, hello, commissioners. This is Tracy from Lyle. And today I'd like to just bring up a couple things. In the past, there's been subjects brought up, one being that bill that I had brought up a couple meetings ago. I believe it was 6130 that was passed in the legislature. And Jeff King was concerned about the bill, said that it would put added hours and time for emergency management. It was on the educating people when there's a emergency declaration or proclamation or whatever you call them, and that there's a duty to have meetings with the public discussing the emergency at hand. And I just wanted to see if you would ask Jeff how that has impacted his department and if he would fill us in on that. And then secondly, with the address response from Director Hunter, or Jeff Hunter in Public Works, you know, I've thought about that, and he said that he doesn't go by addresses with parcels, and he puts every 100 foot there's a mark, you know, a GPS mark on odd and even sides of the street. And I cannot put my head around why that would be. I mean, and that's just for a franchise. Why would there need to be GPS points every 100 foot on the side of the street? And to me, it kind of is gonna all those software programs that say you have not put in a valid address when an address is put in, it's going to make those come up with those addresses rather than say that it's not a valid address. So I'd like to hear from him what he meant by that, as well as the only thing he changed with the addresses in Lyle and Washington is he made the tax, the place the taxes go to the actual address. So he changed the actual tax where the taxes go. So now it's incorrect to the actual address. And the one in Murdoch, he actually changed the name because Doreen had changed her name to Doreen Trustee, and it's now Doreen again. The third thing is I wondered if property that the Friends of the Gorge has to abide by all the Title 12 codes, the road codes, the setbacks for putting a gate in alongside a county road, and the fire codes that the county uses. I'm talking about the property up there by the Grange Hall in Lyle, and there's a gate that's right at the county road, so they have to stop on the county road to open the gate. And then there's people driving through the tall grass in the area, which is a fire hazard. And when asked if they have a fire plan, they had said that they let it burn until it goes out. They don't want dozers up there because they don't want the natural lands disturbed. Okay.
Thank you.
And my
Thank you,
time's up.
Tracy. Thank you. In the room, we have a very small crowd today, so I'm going to guess no. So back on Zoom. Anyone else this morning? Seven, 211.
Greg Wagner with Cease. Findings of facts. That's what you're supposed to have before you make decisions. That's what's supposed to be done when you have ordinances that we put in place. Findings of facts. It's crucial. Obviously, the decision about the jail had no findings of facts. Ms. Commissioner Anderson said, we make many decisions without findings of facts. That's exactly why this jail situation is where it is today. No findings of facts, decisions are made, and problems start. That's why we have all this problems. So it needs to stop. You need to start getting the findings of facts, do the job before you make a decision. Now, House Bill 1756, that's for the renewables. They have an option. They can have a 15-year exemption from not paying their personal property tax and pay just an excise tax. I brought this to your attention, the assessor's attention, the treasurer's attention over a year ago. This House bill can be detrimental to our county. Should these renewables decide only to pay an excise tax, we're going to lose out on personal property tax. That's going to be another lost revenue to the county. So how are you going to make that one up? Y'all haven't even been involved with this. It fell on deaf ears. You've done nothing. Last Wednesday, the Rural Clean Energy Washington had a meeting. None of the commissioners were there. Amanda McKinney from Yakima County, that commissioner was there and spoke. She's very intelligent. She cares about what's going on with these renewables. You had an opportunity to speak up, but you didn't. You let us down. Stephen Drew, the assessor from Thurston County, spoke about House Bill 1756, and he said it would dramatically impact Klickitat, Benton, and Klickitat County if these renewables decide to take the exemption for 15 years of not paying personal property and go to excise tax. That man, the assessor there with 13 years of experience, knows what he's talking about. When will our county assessor, commissioners, the people that should be stepping up, when are you going to step up and start addressing these issues? This could be more lost revenue for the county. It's time that you all start doing something about these things instead of just kicking the can. That's what we hear. That's something you're good at. So step up, start doing your job. Protect the welfare of the citizens. We hear that out of Christopher about the welfare of the citizens. It's time to do your job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. So we'll just move on. I don't see a hand in the room, so we'll move back to Zoom. Dallasport Community Council. Good morning.
I just wanted to say that listening this morning, your first speaker from the room was right on. Gabrielle does not know what the heck she's talking about. She's going on emotions. But as far as the jail goes, we need to keep our jail. Do not close our jail. Mr. Anderson, I don't know what kind of agenda he has, but during the workshop, we talked about number 3 made the most sense, even though there wasn't a number 5, and then number 2, maybe. But, you know, every time he talks about it, he always goes back and adds number 1 in there again. And we've all decided that we do not want number 1. We really don't want number 2. Because then we just got a partial group there. We still have all our responsibilities. And also it's ludicrous when you start talking about the Department of Corrections, because that's a very expensive thing. And if you compare that to leaving it with the sheriff in charge and Karen Ealings as the financial person who keeps all the records, all you're adding is perhaps just 2 nurses. But no, in your presentation, you put $750,000 with a doctor on call or a doctor, and then 4 nurses and all this stuff, setting up a whole clinic. The expense is unbelievable and doesn't even compare to what you really just need to do. And what they've been asking for the whole time is a nurse on duty and mental health on standby. That would be just fine. But no, we keep doing that over and over. We keep going into this. This is ridiculous. And you still haven't even thought about doing that because, of course, you don't like the sheriff. And your liberal friends do not like the sheriff. So that's how come this is all happening. Now, thank God we don't have to worry about Mr. Anderson for the next convention, next election. But I'm still putting my voice out there that, yes, we need to have a recall of Lori Zoller. She has not lived up to what she promised us when she was campaigning, of course, and that goes with any politician, but she has actually been very underhanded about this whole thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzi. No. Okay, back on Zoom. Anyone else this morning? It's a quiet morning. We'll ask one more time and then we'll move on. So seeing no one, we'll move into commissioner comments. Who's first this week?
I'm second, but I'll go first because I don't really have any responses. I will say thank everybody for their comments. But I don't have any answers for any questions that were asked. Most of everything was just a statement, and I do appreciate your statement for everybody that made a statement. So, but I don't have comments. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, are you ready?
I'm still doing some research if you
Okay.
don't mind.
I don't have a lot of comments, but I will comment to Mr. Wagner. We have been involved and concerned about the tax issues. I know that we've spoke to our legislative authority, I believe Wasac, who represents the counties legislatively through representation, is working on that tax issue, and we stay involved through our legislative aid, the Potson Associates. So we've had these conversations even recently. And I did have a sit down with Billy about a week ago about some of these issues. So they're not totally forgotten like you would think. A lot of work goes on that people don't see behind the curtain, I guess. You work when you can get work done. And thank you, Gabrielle, for calling in, and thank you everyone for taking their time to make comments. I'm glad we can provide this forum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to everyone who gave public comment today. Ms. McCune, Senate Bill 6130, I don't believe that's the number. Could you please send us an email with the actual number of the bill you're talking about so that I can actually respond? Mr. Wagner, House Bill 1756 was the legislature, not ours, the legislature's idea of trying to deal with the taxation issue, of which this board was not in favor of at the time. It cut the funds that we would receive, but it would fix the tax shift issue. Washington State Association of Counties agrees, and that's why the one of the priorities and the creation of a task force to deal with the property tax shift is being put forward so that hopefully we can create legislation that'll actually work for the counties. So yes, we as a board put that as one of our priorities. The Washington Association of Counties also put green energy as a priority in terms of dealing with the laws and FSEC. And it was Commissioner McKinney who put forward one of those. I put forward the tax shift idea. So we are working on it, and we attend the meetings as we can. We have meetings all the time, and sometimes you're stuck between choosing which ones you go to. I also asked to serve on that task force for the property tax shift issue, as it hits Klickitat County larger than almost any other county in the state, if not any other county in the state. So we are actually involved, and we're involved in many different ways. So thank you for caring and being a part of it. And as for the jail, as I said, and I think it was put in the newspaper, nobody's, I think, happy with the result of the direction. You've got it pretty well split down the middle between what one side wants and what other side wants. And I don't put it as liberal versus conservative or anti-sheriff versus positive sheriff to Bob. I think it just comes down to it's a very divisive issue. Whenever you're making changes to county government, I think you'll always find that there are people on both sides of the fence, just like any issue. I think where we're at right now is the answers that you brought up, Mr. West, looking for those answers. I know I sent 8 pages of questions that I would need the answers to before making a decision, and I got answers to none of those from the sheriff's office. By bringing in an outside consultant that the fund, our insurance pool will pay for a significant portion of it. We will get those answers. That's what we've been asking for the entire time, is answers, so that we can make those final decisions. And I'm well understood, and I brought it up back on the 29th. I didn't want to put a date on there, but in order to enter into negotiations with the union, which is required so that we can see the financials, that had to be done. And that was the direction from staff that actually knows about the labor laws. We're not labor law experts up here. We're not in the HR department. And I made it very clear then, and I've continued to make it clear, and we made it clear to the sheriff over and over again that the jail wasn't going to close on the 12th, that was an intent to allow for that to occur. And I can speak for Commissioner Zoller and I, we had prepared statements And that's why I had a prepared statement, because I understand the issues with regards to the litigation. That's why I've never talked about any of the individual people or the instances, and I've only talked about the jail in general. If you look to where the issues with litigation likely came, it was from our public comment period the next Tuesday, in which we should have done a better job of moderating so that we didn't add liability to the county, and that's on the Board of County Commissioners. I think whenever we're enter into issues where there's such liability at stake, it behooves the board, because anything you say can and will be used against you in a court. And that's why we come up with prepared statements, so that we don't ad lib and we don't add litigation. So while I respect your opinion, I would disagree with that when it comes to the discussion on the 29th. Gabrielle, I can't wait till when we can go back to talking about childcare. And with that, Washington's a little different than Oregon. You have to have committed an offense of misfeasance or malfeasance. Recalling commissioners or electeds in Washington is much different than Oregon, where in Oregon you can recall for any reason just because you don't like somebody. In Washington, not liking someone's decision or opinion is not a cause for recall, and it is a thorough process. And with that, I would just reach out and state that I think Commissioner Zoller is doing an admirable job under a lot of duress and a lot of very difficult circumstances. I can tell you from being in this position almost 4 years now, the first few years are literally drinking from a fire hose. You are expected to know everything about everything at all times. And it's darn near impossible. Like the jail stuff, that's not something that we wanted to take on. It's not something in our wheelhouse. It's not something that we have 30 years of experience doing. We set policy, and we're also the executive authority. So we direct the people under us and our staff and try to lead by that example. Mr. Rizzi, I was just going to ask if you could send an email. Are you speaking for the council, or are you speaking for yourself? Because when it comes up, it says Dallasport Murdoch Council. So that would just be my question. If you could send an email to me with that answer, that would be great. And I think the other part about the jail is we need to bring somebody in for the transition who has a lot of experience, who has transitioned to other jails, and who can bring the jail up to the Washington State standards that other jails are attempting to meet. And whether we can become accredited or not, I would hope we can, because being accredited would only help us with regards to potential lawsuits in the future and following policies and procedures. Put that up.
Okay. Great.
Ready for agenda?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I move that we pass the agenda with 11 items, pulling item number 2 to be voted on separately.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to look and see what number 2 was. I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, we have before us the letter of appointment and resolution in the matter appointing Mike Villamar Vader to the Board of Adjustment for 6 years, expiring term to begin May 28th, 2024 through January 1st, 2029, filling position number 5, representing Commissioner District number 3. My motion is to approve.
And I will step down in second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
All those opposed, nay. I'm a nay.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move that we pay the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $161,579.50 and the payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $868,002.60 for the date ending June 10th, 2024.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Okay, Commissioner miscellaneous reports and updates or comments. Anybody?
I have a couple of things that now's a good time since we're killing time.
Okay.
And either commissioner can tune into or help me with these. And I think Mr. Anderson, since he was here, is probably the better choice. I was asked for clarification from a citizen on something, and so that's what this is. I believe it is my understanding that we no longer require a well to get a building permit. That as long as you have a well drilled date that will give you the building permit, you just don't get the occupancy permit until you have a water source. Is that, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is that how you remember it? Or would you need to investigate that more?
you have to prove you have potable water, for our environmental health department. So you
Can
can
give you
prove
an occupancy permit though.
for a building permit.
I thought because some of the well drills were a year away. And we didn't want to stop construction because it's going to cost more to build next year. That we allowed essentially the building permit to build, but not the occupancy permit to occupy.
We're going back, what, 3 years now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why if you're not sure, I can ask building and we may have to
Yeah,
get a little more to the bottom of that.
I know there's the process, and we didn't change the process through resolution or through ordinance, so that I can recall from back then. I mean, we went through the entire process for truck potable water, and then you have to go through that, that's a possibility. But I thought for a building permit, you have to, is somebody having an issue? Is that what's going on? And
No, I'm just hearing from people that because wells are taking so long to get a truck out to drill a well, if somebody wants to build a house this year, good luck. Because you're not going to get a well driller this year, which means you can't get a builder to build your house this year. So instead of paying 300 grand for the house, you get to buy 2x4s at an increased price next year, which is $350,000 when you add CPI to a house build, because it's going to take them till next year to get the well drilled. So I know we talked about it and I thought we resolved this issue, but I'll go upstairs to ask Lynn, and then maybe bring this back before I have a hand. I think it's a Bowles question because I know environmental health would have to sign off on the occupancy. But if I'm just building a structure that I don't live in or nobody's living in, I don't know that you would need I'm not looking for an occupancy permit. I'm looking for a build permit.
What if you build a house you cannot access water?
Then you can get a cistern. Because I know that was the argument before. That was the past argument is we can't let you build because then we're at liability if you don't have water. Well, we're not at liability because you can have a cistern on your property. So I'll do
I
more
believe
research, bring
it's
this
a
back up.
conditional release.
Or something like
Yeah,
that.
I think that I'm pretty sure that David works with everybody. That's one of the things that we've always directed staff to do is this, if it looks like it's going to be so far out, then you can actually enter into construction.
That's kind of what I'm saying. I just wanted, I guess I'll talk to building, I'll talk to David Kavanaugh, get a cleaner answer because that was I know we didn't do anything by resolution, but I think we gave policy directive. And that's the problem without putting something on paper is, it gets lost over time. Verbal. So
So I'd bring it back next week and let us know what you found out.
well, when I find out, I'll let you know, because that also, I know we fixed it with the cisterns and everybody remembers that because that was recent enough that it was just last year. Next question or next topic of discussion that I would like to put on a future meeting, not for this meeting, so that everybody can do homework and HR can come prepared. And that is, I'm getting requests that we can't control elected officials, but we can control our departments. And they're requesting quite angrily, that we change our hours to make sure there's at least one staff member working a counter at lunchtime. So that you may not be the correct staff member to be able to answer questions, but you can at least receive a form or something, receive a water sample, health department or whatnot, versus making the citizens who are off on lunch wait here until 1 o'clock until somebody comes back to the office. So I don't know that it's necessarily possible or what the hours are before somebody needs a break. But the thinking is somebody can either go to lunch from 11 to 12 or 1 to 2, and at least staff the front desk for people to drop off things. But I would like to leave that for discussion for another time. If you're open to it, we'll put it on the agenda.
Yeah, I would say that hits on, a lot of our directors that are managing their departments. I know that some of them try to have staff members on and others close it down completely because, the way they run their business. We also cannot control other elected officials, so.
Well, no, I wasn't talking about electeds. I understand I can't control electeds, and I understand some of our staff that only has 2 people in an office. That might be kind of hard to have somebody working at lunchtime. But in offices that have 5, 6, 8, 25, it might be a possibility that if it serves the public and provides them more service, I would like to have that discussion.
So a discussion with HR.
Hope if it's allowed to be on the agenda, that's what I'm asking for.
I would say we'll probably want more than just HR. You're gonna want your directors invited to it as well, or they're gonna feel like you're making decisions or to have a discussion with them.
Well, step 1 would be seeing what is possible with HR and the laws on lunch breaks and hours worked, because it might mean somebody has to work from 9 to 6. Because if it's 4 hours before you go to lunch and your lunch is at 1, now you're from 9 to 6, and what are you doing from 5 to 6? So, I mean, we should know the laws before we worry about the next step, which would be talking to directors if we so chose. So I'm not looking for a big, long, everybody involved kind of thing. I'm just looking for input on knowing what choices we have. And then we can take the next step if so chose, and that's a workshop with the directors to get opinions.
I guess it'd probably easier would be, you just want to go talk to the HR director and then come back.
I would like it on the agenda, and I would ask for a vote, yes or no.
Sure.
Okay. Last thing I had was I would like to see if, I know we had the bill a couple years ago from the solar companies essentially to change the tax shift issue into a PILT. The wording of that was not great. I'm hopeful that as Commissioner Anderson, who's been appointed to WASAC, works through potential legislation, that one of the options is potentially going back to a PILT, but not a defined by the legislature PILT. I would like to have it left up to the counties to either negotiate a PILT, which is payment in lieu of taxes, by the way, for anybody that doesn't know. Negotiate a PILT, or they say no, do the taxes. Because I think this is a revenue source for counties like this, that if you take a PILT that it doesn't go on the tax rolls, you might increase your revenue source. And I think this is something that this county needs to look into for more than just solar projects. It needs to look at PILT options or work with the legislature to change PILT options for things like pump storage and things like data centers. Because if you don't, Not only will the county not see much of a revenue increase when those projects hit, you're also going to get the potential tax shift. So, I mean, you add a pump storage. Okay, let's look at pump storage. $2 billion. County's 2.5 billion worth now, 3.5 billion. You're doubling the worth of the county. And what does the general fund property tax come in at the next year? 1% plus new construction. Which you need to do the math on that. It's not a very big number. Everybody else's will go down, but your revenues will not go up. If you do it in a better way, like Oregon has it, or the Dalles, if you Google, they're going to be receiving 5 to 6 million a year through their PILT, over and above what they currently get in property taxes. And I think that is a sound business model moving forward if it's allowed in this state, or we can change legislation to make it allowed in this state.
Well, you know, in the Dalles, they didn't get really any tax revenue for the first 10 years. So I wouldn't say what the Dalles is getting this next year makes up for them not getting anything the last 10 years. I think in Washington, we need to make sure, like with data centers, that we get to keep our sales tax revenue because
That's a given. That's a separate.
Right. So there's that. The PILT, I think if you did, we bring in 5 million to the general fund, 5.5 or so, maybe this year. If you add 2 billion to that, you're gonna see, that number go up for the new construction, another 3 million or so dollars. Because it's new construction. But you also have to subtract off that 2 billion, any tax credits, federal tax credits they get and everything else. So the number, which granted, you need to talk to the assessor on this, is it goes down, but it goes on as new construction. New construction bumps your total assessed value up. That's where you get the new construction bump.
I understand that, but I would argue the new construction bump of pump storage is not going to be anywhere near as high as the 3 million number you're shooting out there.
I mean, that's just how it works. Granted,
Well, I
I'm not
understand.
talking in specifics. This is my rounding in my head for, it's not.
Right, I'm just
almost
saying, I
doubles the
mean,
assessed
you
value.
look at Lund Hill. Okay, Lund Hill came online. It's that project worth 160 million or some crazy number. Our budget pump last year was the equivalent of about 250,000. Okay, so 50,000 of that is the 1%. Leaves 200,000 countywide for new construction. So what, maybe half of that's Lund Hill and the other half's other homes and whatnot. So the total budget bump you got off Lund Hill was about 100 grand.
I think you should talk to the assessor because I don't think all of it kicked in last year. There should be more. But that'd be a good conversation with the assessor. But again, that's under the assessor's office, not under our office. Everybody likes to think we have
Right,
control.
no.
over
This
everything.
is classification. This is to look at working through WASAC to change legislation to allow counties
Right.
to negotiate into, because currently we don't have that
The
ability.
problem with negotiating your PILT is that means that, remember that number, that PILT dollar, we're thinking about it from our perspective. We're not thinking about it from all the juniors' perspectives. And so if you do a PILT, that might not affect your juniors because it doesn't go on as new construction within their jurisdiction. There's a lot of other pieces that you got to look at when it goes into that. PILT might help us as the county at whole, but it might not help the juniors. And so how you work that out and make that fall out. I think that was some of the issues with 1756, right? 1756, it gives money to the tribes, it gives money to the county, it gives money to the schools. What about the fire departments and cemetery districts and everybody else? So there's a lot of pieces that go into it. I think it could get incredibly complex. Or we could try to keep it a little simpler. I mean, the way that Van did it way back when, I thought that was probably the best way that we'll find.
Yeah, but I just don't see the solar companies buying into it. And so they're gonna end up shifting the legislation again.
Well, they're always going to have, that's why we're going to work as our task force, come up with our recommendations. And then go out and shop it around with the larger companies and see what they're willing to live with. Because
said, I would like to see
they
it
of course
not-
want a tax.
Right, they want a
break.
tax savings, but and you might be able to afford that just like Oregon does. If they're paying on something that isn't affecting property tax, they're essentially paying a piltage type thing. So it's not going on the tax rolls, which means it's additional money for you.
What you might look at, rather than call it a PILT, it might be a community benefit agreement might be the more appropriate term. Because a PILT is a payment in lieu of taxes, so you're getting rid of all the tax revenues. So then you've got to work it out between how does that work with all your juniors and how does that work with everybody else who would have got something? Otherwise, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
And I saw an RCW on that for community benefit at one time that I don't think we're utilizing. I was gonna go back and look for that we could assess larger projects for. And,
I'm
I know.
unaware of any.
you know,
But Jake, you aware of any?
I'm not aware of
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
it was a weird thing I'd ran across.
Oregon has community benefit agreements written
Uh-huh.
into the legislation. Washington doesn't.
And I've tried to make sure that every time Washington writes something, there's something in there that says community benefit agreement. And every time I've talked with any major large company so far since I've sat here, the discussion has always turned to, I understand that you're not by law mandated to have a community benefit agreement. But do you actually, are you trying to invest in our county or you're just trying to take from it?
I have a
So it would
question
be
on
nice.
the Oregon effort. They're now getting money after 10 years. Was that because of what they negotiated in the beginning? Or is that because they renegotiated and now they're getting money?
It needs more thorough investigation by me before I can answer that question.
So
But it's just an idea that I would like the board to focus on and spend some time on.
So in Washington, we're extremely limited in economic development and what we can give to entice companies to come to Washington. Very, very limited by RCW. Oregon, on the other hand, can give all sorts of enticements to get large companies to come in to the areas. And that's one of the things that in economic development, we've always struggled with being a border county where Oregon can come and be like, oh, we'll give you all these benefits. And in Washington, we're like, we can get you the land. That's about it. So that's what Google operated on. Is one of the reasons Google chose to incorporate there and continue to build there because of the benefits, because it gives them tax write-offs right off the bat. There's a lot of benefits to it, but then over time, that ramps up and then they start paying the full amount. We can't do that in Washington current legislation.
Okay, that answers. Did you have more?
No,
Nope, that was it.
I think that was,
Do you have any commissioner comment or
Let me go back
concerns
to-
or?
Yeah, I went to Lewiston last Wednesday for the PN Pacific Northwest Waterways Association for the bridge meeting. And I just wanted to give a little update that, after the Baltimore strike, there's a lot of discussion about bridges now. And what was probably the most interesting thing for me is that we actually have one of the top 5 bridges in the nation that's susceptible to a Baltimore collapse. And thank God it's not our bridge. It is the bridge down there in Longview. That's
So bad.
yeah, with that span and the size of the size of the ships on the Columbia have increased such a drastic amount over the last 30 years that that bridge is highly susceptible according to I think it's the top 5 in the nation.
Not surprising.
Yeah, so
It's very
but
bridge.
there's a lot of discussion and like for our bridge, and I'm not saying the Baltimore collapse had anything to do with it, but what's driving the size of the footings and the columns and the pillar coming up out of the water is bridge strikes. And because you've got to have so much weight, because those barges with the winds in the Columbia River and the size of the barges when they go through there, that's driving the design, which it's a lot of concrete and it's a lot of expense. On the Washington side of the river, we can have smaller footings and smaller foundations because the depth of the water is so shallow that you don't have to worry about the barge would run up against the rocks before it hit the pillars. But on the Oregon side, it's deeper over there, so that's an issue. So having a deep river is not necessarily a good thing when you've got big barges going up and down it.
I've only hit a bridge once. I didn't damage it
Damage yourself.
Well, our bridge has been hit, I think, 3 times
by big ships, yeah.
by big ships.
Terrifying.
Well, it's still standing, so.
Yeah.
Let's see, what other meeting did I have? You guys know, Sean? Are we getting close to time?
Uh, Yeah, and then I had one thing, if Casey's got it.
Go ahead.
There was a little controversy on the Facebook stuff this weekend over the farmer's market. And evidently, the comments were saying that farmers markets were closed and that people are told that they need a cottage industry permit. And so I got a hold of the Department of Health this morning. And yes, they did have a walkthrough that kind of were letting people know there is a process, and selling vegetables and other uncooked items is one thing, but anything that you're processing, you do need to go through a process for a permit. It's required by the state, and we do have a process here in the county. They assured me they are not closing any farmers markets ever, but they would like to encourage people to come in and get their proper permits. So I will make sure that I post the option of where to go to get that permit online on Everything Goldendale and a couple other places. And can we post it on our page, on the commissioner's page too, if I get that information to you? Okay, so I'll make it available and I'll reach back out to the people that called me. So, okay. And then something we talked about in the past, and Mr. Christopher, you had brought up, was safety and lithium batteries. And I think that's a subject that went kind of down the road. And I've been working on some things, talking to Yakima County, looking at some things. And I would like to bring that back up and put it on our 20th workshop, if we have space. If you guys want to talk about it, start working on it. Yes. You know who's gone. Okay, I think we could start some pre-conversations. I think we've all looked into it and worked on things. I have more information to bring to the table too. so-
What all do we have on the agenda for the workshop on the 9th? Oh, we don't have anything yet.
Well, that's good. We have a lot of time.
Yeah, because I know the county officers are closed Wednesday, so I could see people taking Thursday off to try to make it.
Okay. That's all I have. So Casey, would you like to use some time? Yeah, good to see you.
Good morning. We have a couple positions. I'm up here to request verbal to post for the clerical admin 3 position in the public health department. It is going to be vacant and it is within budget. And they're looking to post for steps 1 through 3. It is a non-exempt grade 36 position already in the org chart established.
Do you know if that's a Goldendale position or a white salmon
Sorry,
position?
it is white salmon
That
position.
was gonna be my question. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I have no issues.
Mhm.
And then requesting a verbal to post for the deputy prosecuting attorney 3 position in the PA's office as well. It is vacant and it is within the budget and it is already a pre-existing position. So steps. Yep.
I budgetarily, I find it to be an issue and it will be an issue again this fall, but it is budgeted for this year, so I have no issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Early lunch, look at there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that. So, okay. So Public Works, if you're ready, I think Jeff just went back out of the room.
Yeah, emergency management just went, wait a minute, 11:15 just canceled? So that means I got from 10 to noon.
You said 5 minutes is all it's gonna take?
Oh, I should have.
Oh,
lit
I
it
am
in
gonna
there.
time that. Challenge accepted. Challenge accepted, sir.
I should have recognized you, Jeff. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna run the timer now. I'm sorry. It's challenge accepted
you.
on that one.
Thanks, Seth.
I don't even get past the first page.
So Public Works with Jeff Hunter and Mr. Scroll.
Now, we could probably be 5 minutes, but.
And before we start, Steph, I want to thank you for providing me with those numbers. I really appreciate it. So I wanted to make sure that was a public thank you. Job well done, sir.
What numbers are these?
I asked for detailed numbers on the amount of dollars spent on roads in Roosevelt and Bickleton in the last 3 years.
Like construction or
Yeah,
maintenance? Or all of it?
no, just well, not potholes, but Roosevelt grade, Bickleton Highway, Bickleton Town roads, bridges. That kind of thing. We've spent a lot of project money out there, and I just kind of wanted to
Can I get
they're all on the 6-year plan. But there's only about, do you want a copy of it? Is that what you did? Okay, yeah. If I forget, remind me, but yeah.
Go ahead.
We're ready. Okay, speaking of potholes, we'll start there. Yes, we are patching those. We're in the process of patching. It takes us a little longer because we're down a few people, but yes, we are patching.
Do you have any kind of guesstimate of timeline of potholes in my area? So I can pass that message on to people that think it should have already been fixed today. And I could tell them a week from now, 3 weeks from now.
Give us a couple weeks,
Couple weeks.
but I'm not gonna say all the
Right,
areas
right,
because,
right.
the Centerville Highway, definitely. So give us a couple weeks on
Okay.
that. We'll have that
No,
taken.
good enough.
With that, the only thing we have is the pay estimate for all seasons, HVAC, and the amount of, it's, 9,000, it's, $745. And that is for I'm not sure what we paid that on, to be honest with you. I'd have to look at it, but, it's the first payment on
Back
that
payment.
project. The project hasn't actually started. It's HVAC though, yes, it is HVAC. We are whittling them down. All of them are beyond life. That's why it's bad that we're in this, but this is how they're done. All the HVAC units were replaced in the 80s and 90s on the roof of the courthouse. So they've all lived past their life. And that's why we replaced them. Pioneer Center's in the same situation.
What's a guesstimated lifespan on something like that? You said 80s and 90s. I mean, it's 20, 30 years.
Yeah, if you can get 20 years, you're doing really well out of a unit. And we got our.
So I'll
20
be
years.
dead before they need to have them done again.
Yes.
Perfect. Good answer.
Yeah, we won't be, there won't be too many of us sitting here when that happens. Well, I guess there could be.
Lori
We'd
will
be
be here.
pretty old, but we'd be
Yep.
pretty old. but-
125.
Yeah. Other than that, we'll roll right into the construction report.
All right, Bickleton area paving, they're working on placing the remaining pavement surface and shoulder rock and completing approaches. So hopefully we're buttoning up on that one pretty quick. Sundale Old Highway 8, they're continuing with excavation and embankments. Those 2 pictures I handed you are from our Sundale Old 8 project. Let's see, the annual striping, phase 1's complete, waiting for our other work before we start the second phase this year. On road design, Sunnyside Road overlay, we're continuing with our design and coordinate with utility companies. Bridge repair bundles, the last consultant agreement was on the agenda this morning, and the consultant is gearing up to start those designs. Pickleton Highway overlay, Box Springs vicinity, that's the new federal project. I got the paperwork into WashDOT for review, so we can hopefully get that redistribution dollars to pay for that. White plastic edge lines and curve warning signs, those two new safety projects are currently being designed, and the road safety plan update. We're putting together an RFQ to get a consultant on board to complete that project. That's all I got there, Jeff.
Okay, on the maintenance side, we're doing some grading and around on the east side and cutting brush. West side, we are patching Lyle and Dallasport this week. Upcoming facilities, sale barn, I was just talking to Ron about that. All the concrete is done except for the wash rack. That'll be done at the last. They are erecting the building now. The uprights have gone up, I've heard.
Yes.
I've not had a chance to get out there, want to get out there today and see. Superior Court, they're down for a couple days, so we're gonna actually start installing ballistic panels for the judge and the clerks. So those will soon be bulletproof panels. Events with circus, will be here this weekend for people that want to attend the circus. Be out at the fairgrounds. Demo derby still moving forward. We got our 90% fuel island plan, so we're in the review of that. The election box is, the slab is scheduled to be poured on Friday for the relocation of the one in Goldendale. Trout Lake Park, we're gonna start that work next week. Our carpenters are actually staying out there. They're gonna camp and saves us some money. Glad they're doing it, so we're not paying them to go to and from. They chose to do that on their own, so that was good of them. West District Court, the project is complete, and grandstands improvements, the seating is done, hand railings and ramps should be installed next week. That project will be complete by the 4th. Other issues, just letting you know, we will be soon delivering a Snowden outreach letter. It's part of our grant. If you've heard anything, I know the community council's a little, but just to let them know, this only has to do with a future project out there. It's not about zoning, not about speed limits or any of that. It's about that project. But I know some of you have gotten calls and probably it was related to what we're doing out there.
And a CC to me.
But we will.
Okay.
You'll see it before it goes out.
Okay, thank you.
We've also been contacted by the Lyle Fire District about providing them fuel, which we will do. And the school district if they come knocking. We do that for Bickleton and we work closely with the other communities. So like at Bickleton, we're the only fuel source. And rumor has it we could soon be the only fuel source in Lyle.
Wow.
That's what we've heard, but I don't want to, I probably shouldn't have said that in open session.
So what do you mean by supply them fuel?
They buy fuel from us.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, we have an agreement with all the districts. And we have to update the one for the Lyle Fire District and then we bill them monthly. They
Okay.
sign in, we bill them monthly.
Okay.
And that's, I think, all we have.
Thank you.
Wasn't quite 5 minutes.
I know, but it's a little close.
You're getting close. We'll see you about in the next job.
Okay, yes.
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. You did make the statement you're down a bunch of guys. Is that for vacation or is that just positions?
We're still down positions.
Okay.
I mean, you know, some of it, we're okay with being down a couple positions because it's a cost savings,
Mhm.
but on the west side, we're pushing that needle. We're still down 4 people.
Wow.
So, we can get by now. We just do less. The winter it'll be where it'll get really sketchy because each person has a route that they plow. And if we're down people, that means the routes don't get plowed.
Have you, side note, whole separate animal, have you done any reaching out to judges to see if or to let them know, if you're even interested, I'm throwing this out there, of potential, community service people helping with, landscaping and mowing and whatever. I don't know if that's something you're terribly interested in, but some of those people get a good little chunk of hours. And,
I will talk to, because we usually do it through adult probation.
mhm.
So I'll talk to Courtney. In the past, we actually have used them.
I just didn't know if you saw use, or if the benefit was, greater than the hassle, or I know you have in the past, but I haven't seen any lately. So I just kind of, as we start struggling with buildings and grounds type staff, just throwing an option out there.
We have, they're, where we can, we've used them in the past. It's hit and miss with some people. Just depends on the person, like everything else. We've used inmates in the past too. But, you know, that's when they would lock people up for DUIs and things like that. And they were less of a flight risk. You can't have somebody out there that's gonna take off. But, I mean, we usually use them if we can, but it's been far and few between lately. Just because of the way things have changed.
Well,
And I
know
don't mean
there's-
in the county, please,
Right.
people, not, this
Right.
is state.
I know that there's
Nothing to do with
state
the county.
laws that, you know, the judges can't, incur fines on people that are poor anymore. So there's a lot less community service because a lot less people are having to pay back fines. So I mean, I'm assuming where you're
Yes,
coming
that's where I
from,
was going
and it's
with
not
it.
a county thing.
It is
state-
not a
state law.
county
I'm
thing.
just throwing it out there that you might be able to find somebody to help weed your garden out there.
Oh, yeah, if we can find people, we.
Especially getting into the busy summer as you need summer help. And
Yes, we were
Just
very
throwing it
fortunate
out.
last year that, the litter crew came and bailed us out.
Well, they even have far less.
I know they do,
Let's
because.
say our litter cleanup, we had 14 last year, and this year we had 4. I was very happy to have the 4.
Yeah, it's getting tougher. It's work. We don't like doing work.
Less convicts. It's
Yes.
not tougher. That's a good thing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good morning, Mr. King.
You want to do the pay estimate that's on the agenda first, ma'am? I'm sorry, ma'am.
No, you're okay.
I know I said ma'am, but you said it was an accident. You don't like ma'am. I get it. I'm sorry.
Just go right. I
I
have no problem.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve pay estimate number 1 for Klickitat County Courthouse HVAC replacement project in 2024 for the amount of there's a lot of zeros there. I'm wondering if there's missing zeros. $9,745.64. That number just seems small.
I will second the motion.
What it says.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
I
Aye.
That's
Motion
it.
passes.
cheapest air conditioner we've ever had here.
That was just the first,
The final.
no, that was the first a little bit of it is. what
Oh.
it
Just to
said.
wake you up and say,
Oh.
it's coming.
The 97,000 one will be later.
Yeah. Good morning.
Morning. Yes, so believing that you've read my update that I submitted last week, do you have any questions?
Not.
Excellent. Then I only have 4 things to add to that. One of which you can see that my chief of operations is not here. We have 2 people attending the State 911 Fall Forum in Vancouver for the next 3 days, which is mandated under the State 911 grant. We just recently received 1 additional notice of a vacancy in communications officers. We have our communications officer of over 30 years retiring. Her last day will be the end of July. Also
Jeff,
down.
before you go on,
Yes.
where are we at in training and filling holes? You know, we got all those. Do we have another cohort coming through?
We've not had much luck in getting qualified applicants. So we are again looking at our pool of applicants and we're scoring those applications now and hope to schedule interviews next Monday and Tuesday. But,
Do you have anybody currently occupying those three, whatever you want to call them, casual positions?
no,
The ones that were in there, we had three and they either passed or failed and we haven't got a new three is what you're saying.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, since we posted, for those three positions, I think we reposted it again last fall, late November somewhere. The applications that we've received have not given us any cause to hire and go through the expense of training folks that we didn't believe would be
A good fit.
appropriate. Yes. So, but now is the time. That's where we will soon be down 2 and possibly down 3 by July 1st, based on the information that I have. Under emergency management program, winter storm, public assistance program, we have received the agreement from the state, which is a pass-through from FEMA through the state. We submitted that for approval as to Form PA and received the approval back. So it'll be coming to your agenda for approval soon. We're still waiting on FEMA to designate a program manager. That agreement that we received goes through April of 2028. So this will be a long process, and it's by design so that those projects are of a larger nature and that have not been started, like the road repairs, public works. We've been working closely with them. Those things can all be done and then, paid for, and we can get reimbursed for them through this process. The things that, like for emergency management, all the things that we did during the storm and immediately following the storm to make emergency repairs, we've already expended those funds. Those reimbursements should be coming soon, but just to get this grant agreement and the projects listed and approved through FEMA, it will still take some time. Also, under emergency management, the amateur radio emergency services ARES section, I have a meeting at the request of the city of Goldendale, representing them as their emergency management director, to advise them on an agreement for an amateur radio repeater located at this city property in the watershed on Simcoe Mountain, to keep that repeater in service, because Western Pacific Timber has indicated that that private owner volunteer can no longer keep their repeater equipment on their property.
Does
And that came up months
where
back.
we built our tower not work underneath their farm?
No, it would not. That would be
Too far east.
another option, third or fourth, but it does shadow the western part. Where it is now is the perfect location. That's why it's been there for decades. But yeah, moving forward, if we could just move a little to the east from where it currently is on the city property, that would give us that same coverage going. Because right now you can use it even. If we move farther around the next ridge, you wouldn't be able to get it out of White Salmon even.
Is this repeater that we're discussing, is it a mobile repeater or is it a building brick and mortar kind of thing?
It's a building, yeah, solar powered and so on.
Why, do we have any kind of idea from Western Pacific on why they're not?
They don't want to encumber the sale of their property. Yeah.
Got it.
One other thing I might mention, I sent the email to the owners of Elk Meadows RV Park, explaining the situation with the county code amendment and the burn ban. And hopefully you either got that already or should. If there's any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll consider that a closed matter. I was going to follow it up with a phone call to the owners just to make sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
5 minutes and 30 seconds and I took a bunch of that, so wow. I don't even know what to say.
Did you practice?
No. Like I said, I wrote it all down. There weren't any massive changes over the weekend, so we're all good.
This is going down in history.
Uh-huh. Well, I was hearing from Commissioner Sauter that they limited him to, previous board limited him to 4 pages. His report. So I don't know the
It's just their
accuracy
own-
to that I want to know what it was before that.
I can give
But-
you as much information or as little information as you want. Another thing on my radar is the EMS district, as I am your representative to the EMS district board. they have a-
MS for everybody.
Oh,
not-
yes, Emergency Medical Services.
There we go.
The County Ambulance Service District. They have a special meeting this afternoon to discuss the proposals for someone to advise them on the best way to move forward for building a new ambulance barn here in Goldendale on the property that they purchased last year.
I thought they were, I could swear they were talking about doing it in Dallasport and not here.
Well, that
That's a
as well.
separate baby.
Yeah, the Dallasport station is problematic in the lease that they have there and so on. As well as the White Salmon, that building, the Skyline Hospital building there that they rent, has issues, and some of those have been mitigated in the last couple of years, but yeah, they were able to purchase property here. In the, how do you describe this? You know where the food carts are? Off of Simcoe, on the south side of Simcoe there, behind Sinclair. They purchased a piece of property there and are planning to build a new ambulance station there. So they'll be opening those.
Do they have the
proposals.
money in reserves for the construction already?
I would say some.
Yeah. I would.
We
I
don't
would say-
know what that cost
I-
is.
I would say if you look at their reserves, they probably have almost as much as we do. So yeah, I'm not worried about how much money they have.
This is the first step in opening up those proposals for getting a consultant to help them move forward. But like I said, that's a special meeting
How,
today.
how many SAR calls are we getting right?
Oh. Sorry, that caught me off guard. Different capacity. That I serve in. You talking like an average over the years?
I'm just
Um,
wondering, the reason it came up is I saw Skamania County had 3 SAR calls over the course of 2 hours and they're just getting burnt out. And I was wondering how often we're getting called out compared to Skamania County with the hiking and everything down there right now.
Yeah, because of the recreation resources they have not only along the Columbia River, but also the whole national forest. I did also see that Facebook post from the sheriff. They have a lot more recreation and a lot more opportunity for those recreators to get lost or injured. So they've always had more SAR missions than we have, although we go to help them. All those missions were resolved fairly quickly, and only one of them involved the actual deployment of search and rescue volunteer team. So our SAR calls are on average for this year, I would say.
Okay.
We had one this weekend involving a rafter or a kayaker that got injured on the White Salmon River above BZ. My understanding is a shoulder injury, and she was on the wrong side of the river from the highway to get out and get transported, so she had to be got across the river and then walked out. Yep.
Their county is so much rougher than ours too. The locations, the trails, and their river that's.
A lot more, yeah, like class 4 and 5
Mhm.
on the rivers. And then, yeah, just the vastness of the national forest and the amount of people that recreate out
And the
there.
trails and the dirt bikes and everything that's up there.
Yeah, we have a lot more, or a lot less public ground here now. for
Well,
people.
and all our forests are now getting closed.
Yes.
So you don't get to go recreate in any of these nice places anymore.
I know it's freedom of choice, national forest, but has there ever been a agreement made for some kind of payment back to SARS or anybody? That's what I thought.
No, we've had discussions at the Columbia Gorge when the counties get together with the Forest Service about, hey, you guys are getting all the benefit and we're assuming all the costs and responsibility for picking these people up, and the Forest Service has given lip service to it, but they've never came to the table with a bunch of money.
Well, and we're renegotiating that fairly soon. They're going to be opening up the gorge designation things again and going through them. So that's a good thing to keep on the radar.
Negotiating.
The Gorge Compact. So they're having an update to all of the rules and regulations within the Forest.
Well, I understand that. How does that affect if the Forest Service actually pays? for
Because we can
something?
sit at the table and negotiate again. And we have a lot more impact for recreation compared to when they built that compact the first time.
Right, but
Now we know what the impact is.
their tax, you might say, is not substantial.
That's the Gorge Commission Compact, correct, though?
Mhm.
Right, this is, so we're talking about National Forest Service.
Totally
Correct.
different
And that,
animal.
it's a different beast.
Kind of, sort of. Yeah. It all functions together. And there is oversight from one entity to the other.
Do we get called on mutual aid with Skamania County for SAR very often?
Yes.
We do, okay.
Yeah, it depends on the season and the year, but yes, they call us quite often. We have much more robust SAR team than they do most of the time.
Right, and then they also call on Clark County too, I think.
Yes, Silver Star Search and Rescue out of Clark County is an independent SAR unit, and they come to Skamania County often. Same as we do.
How'd the training go Saturday?
The joint UAV or drone and search and rescue rope training on Saturday night went very well. Now, all good reports back from that. Yep.
Don't have any more questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Carry on, sir.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff, did you still want to get together and chat? Because I think we're going to be out early if you want to wait.
I'll wait.
Okay.
Would like to come in and take your 11:15.
You can take our 1022.
Time to run. I said it's
I'm
not
gonna sneak out for
lazy.
2 minutes and make a photocopy and come back.
Okay.
Since me and guys been going on. Don't talk to me.
Sorry.
There he is.
The shoreline permit, this is, Anderson,
Oh, yeah.
he owns his parcel up here.
This is what they're trying to get professional help.
Bridge, no.
Oh.
This is
One must be
the-
nimble in this
the,
business.
shoreline
Nimble and
That made me come down here.
She's mean.
Question is, do you know why you came?
She's she's not mean.
No.
And that concludes my report, so.
Thank you.
That was for everybody paying attention, that was the copy of the Bickleton projects. Like you said, asphalt isn't on there for next year, but no, the questions I was getting mostly pertain to Sundial and how much county tax money was going into that project. You know, why are we spending $5 million on a road with three people? And as you can see, the breakdown shows that where the money's all coming from. So that was the purpose of that. Moving on.
Mr. Van Cleve.
Good morning. So this would be the first jail transition update. I thought it was important. There's been obviously a lot of discussion. A couple different motions. We're now on a new motion that was made on the direction we're going now. So my goal is to try and break things down into bite-sized pieces so we can begin to get the momentum of moving forward as per the motion. So I broke the motion down into 4 pieces. The first part, direct staff to prepare documents for the creation of a Department of Corrections via resolution. So my sense is, and some of this is gonna, it's kind of stating the obvious, but I think for the public's benefit of the discussion, that you would like me to proceed with the creation of a corrections department. And I bring that up because other counties, at least Benton County, they did everything all at once. Just one big document. And with the different pieces of this motion, it seems like the first step in terms of this part of the motion would be to actually create a Department of Corrections by resolution and then add the pieces to it as we go through the transition, the org chart, the budget, all of those other pieces that would be part of a new department. But to actually get started and address it step by step is, if that is the case, then I can bring a resolution forward at a future meeting to create the department, and then we'll start the process of actually filling in all of the pieces of that department.
Do we know why Benton did it all at once?
No.
And do we know what Clark or Spokane did?
No, I don't. Benton's was a big document. It had an inventory list. It had all the resolutions. It had it was a pretty substantial document, but I don't think we're in a position. We still have a lot of unanswered questions, and so let me go through it and we can come back to this. So that's the first part. Second part, staff's directed to seek a consultant to review the options of 2 and 3. I think that's changed a little bit. We've been able to engage the services of a person, a jail commander or jail chief, I think is his title, recommended by our insurance pool, who does operations reviews of jails throughout the pool, which is 24 different counties. He's highly recommended. He's willing to do it. Initially, when I contacted him, and by the way, the pool is going to pay his travel and expenses, and I believe for the operations review, but I don't know. I think his sheriff is covering his wages. So, because he's done this for other counties. He was not able to start till the first week of July. He got a hold of me and said that he's been able to move his schedule around, and he'll be on site June 20th and 21st with 2 representatives in the insurance pool to begin the process of an operations review. This is a standard operations review of a jail. This is not an investigation or any other terminology that we've discussed over the last couple of months.
Clarification on that, sorry. The insurance pool's already had a walkthrough of the jail once already, right?
That was just
Right, just kind of a walkthrough.
yeah, just
And you just mentioned there are 2 representatives with the insurance pool are coming with him. on
I
this
believe the 2 risk managers,
Okay.
one for
Good enough.
sure,
Yeah.
one for sure, the one who's assigned to the law enforcement part of the pool will be there. They've both indicated they would like to be there. This review will probably take well over a month. He'll be here multiple times for 2 or 3 days at a time sometimes as he works on this comprehensive review of the jail operations. The sheriff is he's going to meet with the sheriff. The sheriff's supportive and looking forward to meeting with him on the 20th when he first gets here to start the process. And I think I just read that he was recently, I thought the wrong copy, he was recently, I think this past weekend, named the Detention Administrator of the Year by the National Association of Jail Operations. It's a national organization, so he comes well qualified and well recommended, and we're looking forward to him here. So I think initially he may check the box of the consultant. I know there's other pieces that and he's willing to look at other things, answer other questions after this review, if his review doesn't already address some of them. He's not coming on board to look at the options. He's coming on board to do an operations review. He can and will answer questions. He also indicated to me on a phone call that he's willing and able, if you would like him to at some point, to help with the transition or help put it together. Take the things he learns and put it into some kind of plan in conjunction with hopefully an interim corrections department administrator. So I think that's good. So we're well on our way on addressing that piece so far. I guess down the road, if we do need someone else to address something else, then we can cross that bridge when we get there. So I think this is it's a good starting place. The second part, or the third part, direct staff to prepare a supplemental budget. I'm pretty sure it's not going to take a supplemental budget. At least that's what I was told, but I'm not the expert in that area. But that's a discussion that's going to be, has or will be occurring with the finance committee on the process of eventually moving those funds into that new department. So, but I believe Jen told me it wouldn't actually be a supplemental budget, but I could be wrong. So that piece is also being looked at. And then the fourth part, staff's directed to find an individual to serve as an interim jail manager. So I've already started getting the word out there, but of course, the first question is, well, what's it pay and how long? So through various discussions here, I think we're probably looking at 3 to 6 months just as a starting point for a contract. And one option to establish the pay for a contract would be what we currently pay the chief of jail deputy, which is a well-established position here. And that current pay for that position does fall in the ranges 73 through 76 pay grades that are normally associated with the director. So I think it's already established, and that would be probably the easiest and quickest way. But we have to establish some level of compensation because I can't just put as negotiated. Nobody will apply. So anyway, so I need direction on all of those, make sure I'm, so on number one, would you like me to begin the process of creating a Department of Corrections? And getting that process started?
I think it's the sensible step, baby steps, piece by piece.
I made the motion and you pretty much read it back, so.
Okay, well, I actually read it back, yes. Commissioner Christopher? Okay. All right. Second part, the consultant, so his initial visit, he'll meet with the sheriff. The jail's still under the operation of the sheriff, and he'll meet with the sheriff and his staff, and we're going to be preparing a long list of things for him that he's gonna want to review throughout this process. So staff will be working on that and to get that information. So at some point, and he said you come meet with the commissioners, that's part of the plan. I think he initially just wants to meet the jail staff and the sheriff and begin, but it'll be more than one opportunity should you wish to meet with him, and he's willing to do that, of course. The budget part's being worked on, and that will follow the creation of the department anyway, and then salary for the position. So direction.
So you're thinking of it as a casual employee?
I'm thinking of it as a contract employee, 3 to 6 months, limited contract, no benefits, just a monthly pay. That's where I would start as opposed to a casual employee.
So if they're not gonna get benefits and they're expected to provide benefits, then does that fall in line with the position? Because if they're expected to provide their own benefits, you'd expect they'd need a higher amount in order to make up the difference on the benefit side.
Well, contract positions typically don't get benefits, and we're just, this person wouldn't come in with the idea that they would be the ultimate jail manager, administrator, but they could apply should they
So
choose.
short term.
So it's short term.
Right, it's short, so it's short term and they're coming in to do a transition and as a contract employee, are we gonna get anybody for that kind of level of expertise and service on a short-term basis so it doesn't provide benefits at the same rate we're paying somebody who gets benefits?
Right, well, I think it's a good question. I think it's a good place to start. I did talk to the gentleman who's going to be doing the operations review. Obviously, he's well connected throughout the state and throughout multiple states. And his first question is, well, what is going to be the compensation for him to get the word out? He just needs to tell people what it is. I think to pay somebody $8,000 a month for 3 to 6 months to help work on a transition plan should be adequate to attract folks who are retired in transition, other that may be willing to do this. The odds of getting somebody to move here for 3 to 6 months, that's not going to work. I don't think so. I think it's a good starting point, Commissioner. And if this doesn't work, then maybe we can move to casual or some other arrangement.
Well, I just also look at it as in there, we're gonna pay to put them up and house them and per diem and all that.
That would all
as
be
a contract.
negotiated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could all be negotiated and discussed. Yeah, it's a good point. So there may be other costs, but it's just a long established pay And I thought it was a good starting point rather than trying to come up with something else. Yes, sir. Oh, you
I
just-
disagree with that approach, but
Okay.
What would your approach be, Commissioner Christopher?
I've already mentioned it, that we would post to hire for the position, because to me, having somebody come in and run it for 3 to 6 months, and then you hire somebody else, they might want to change this or that. How many times you want to change it? To me, you have the consultant guy come in and do the consulting part, who's gonna, say this policy procedure might tweak here, there, whatever. But I guess I just don't understand the interim.
I don't look at it so
Position,
much as
so-
changes as fine tuning, and it will just keep ratcheting down and getting better.
And I may have misinterpreted this too. I see this position as building the transition plan and moving it forward, not actually running the facility once, though that could be decided down the road. But initially, it's going to be somebody who's going to work with the consultant on the information they get and all the other pieces internally, the budget, all of that stuff that has to occur to put the plan together. And then at the point of transfer, that person could be there, but hopefully before that, we've decided what it's going to look like. We still have two options on the table, what it's going to look like, what's the direction of the commissioners at that point. And we've already got a position posted. We know the title, we know the pay. And
So with this interim hired consultant person, then be in charge of the jail? Is that when the sheriff would no longer be in charge of the jail, or are we waiting until we hire the permanent person? That's, 6 months from now, so in the next 6 months, the sheriff's running the jail.
those are all good questions. And I think consultant and interim are separate. We have them, and I don't think we even use the word consultant. We have an operations review who checks the box of a consultant, I believe, at a lot less than the 6 figures you normally pay for a consultant of that caliber. The interim, that's a good question, Commissioner. I think the first thing is they have to start working on the transition plan. And once they start putting the pieces in place, the last step is to actually transfer the jail under the direction of the commissioners, as per the resolution or as per the motion. But there's a lot of steps between now and then. And I think this interim person initially will help to get all of those pieces in place. Commissioner Anderson's talked often about a transition plan. And I think I would suggest the first duty of this interim would be to begin to build a timeline and a project management timeline of all the pieces that have to occur before you actually take command of the jail. That's a starting point, but I think as we get into and learn, there'll be a lot more questions and things will come up that maybe we're not currently thinking about. It's kind of a starting point is how I look at it, I guess.
What I appreciate out of the flow of all this is where it's went to, we're actually turning back and looking and qualifying under our risk management, under the advice of risk management. And I like that we're not just blind with some consultant that we don't know the qualifications really, or what their personal desires are. So I'm thankful for that.
It is interesting. I find it interesting if it's gonna take 6 months to do a transition, because we're 6 months through the year already. So technically, if we take 6 months before we sign a resolution to take over the jail, that's either going to be before or after a new board is sitting. So that could change.
Commissioner, I'm not aware it's going to take 6 months. I think that's just a framework to give so we can get somebody on board. It could take 3 months. It could take less. I just don't know until they actually begin to work on a transition plan. I think it'll become organic and follow its own path once they start putting the pieces in place. At this point, I think 3 to 6 months is just something so we can tell folks what we think the commitment will be. It may quickly become apparent it's quicker or takes longer. I don't know. I think it's an estimate or a guess at this point of a range. So you could be right, or it could happen at some point sooner.
And I guess the reason why I thought this would be the best way to go is you've got to there's a difference between builder and maintainers. And we're asking for a builder to come in here to build a transition plan, somebody that's probably has a little more on the project management side, that could create it, get it all up and running, move it over, and then you have a maintainer come in who might be internal, he might, somebody, or he or she could be external. But that could take a little bit of time, and you could have they could have that builder still operating until we find that right person. And maybe that person wanted to come out of retirement and maintain, but I just doubt it.
So are we okay with that salary as a starting point?
I'm fine if we put it out there as a starting point, and you got to find the right person. That's what it really comes down to.
No.
Okay, okay,
You get 2 out of 3.
okay.
I don't think it's gonna be enough. I think you're gonna come back. I want to make sure we have somebody that's good to go.
I guess that's the other part is giving you the ability to negotiate, because I see like Commissioner Christopher, I think to get somebody to come out of retirement, come over here for 3 to 6 months, you're gonna have to entice them.
Well, in a perfect world, we'll get more than one person interested and the commissioners can make the selection, but we'll take each step. And I plan as you've directed to be here every Tuesday, even if I don't have a lot to update, just let folks, things are in progress and where we're at.
And I appreciate that. They appreciate that.
And then one final thing, if I have time.
Yeah, lots of
Sure.
time.
Is, as you know, I'm working with a resident of Snowden on recycling issues. The questions are fairly easy to respond to, and I'll do that. She's been very gracious and patient. But I think what really probably needs to happen is there needs to be an interaction with Republic on some of these questions. It is part of their contract with us. Since I've been the interim manager, the commissioners have been the liaison with Republic because we were predominantly in negotiations for the contract. I'm happy to reach out to them and discuss these issues on behalf of this citizen or with this citizen, but I defer to the commissioners if that's a role that the commissioners would like to do as they've done in the past, at least the last couple of years.
I guess I don't understand what questions you'd have to be the middleman on. There's parts of solid waste that are our responsibility, and there's parts of solid waste that are recycling that is a private company's responsibility that I don't think the county needs to try to tell the private company
Well,
what to
at
do.
this point, I'm trying to keep it general, but there's questions of the recycling pickup is part of the contract. That's a section of the contract we had from the very beginning. And it's part of what Republic provides. And so I think if I boil down her concerns, it's about service. And she's tried to reach out to them and has talked to somebody. But as the vendor of them, I mean, it's a contract with the county. I think to have somebody reach out to them and say, hey, have a discussion with them. This isn't it by any means. She's not filing a complaint, and she spoke very, very highly of the actual employees of Republic. But this is something I think that the director would have done, was to kind of the liaison between the public and the commissioners and the citizens. So I'm just asking, do you want me to have this conversation with Republic if it needs to be had to help her get the answer she needs, or is this something the commissioners would prefer to do?
I would say that it was something that was done in the past by previous solid waste director. Not trying to delicately word what I'm going to say. It wasn't always looked on favorably. So fair warning.
I think it's good to always get ahead of the game and reach out in friendship and reach across the aisle and mend fences when you can.
And I feel like I have a good relationship with the Republican, just to have this conversation. It's not
Not a burning fire.
it's not a negative. It's just seeking to understand and
We
maybe
don't want it
helping.
to go there.
So I'm happy to do if you want me to. I'm happy to defer to the commissioners or a commissioner if that's your preference too. I just think in this case, that's probably what needs to happen to learn more.
I forwarded it to you because I thought you'd be able to get the answers or have the answers as the interim solid waste manager. Long-term.
I think you got it
interim
from me too.
Manager. And so I have no problem with you to having the discussion with Republic to get the answers you need as well.
Yeah.
And maybe elevated in Republic size about the issues that people have been having with recycling for a long period of time.
All right, then I'll do that and I'll report back to you what I
Thanks.
hear. So I think that's it for me.
Easy.
All right,
Thank
thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you just sightseeing, Casey, or are you back in? Gonna run now. Okay. Do it quick.
I have a clarification. Got an email from Wasack. They're doing a Columbia River County's caucus tour schedule thing. And I guess I'm just looking for clarification. I thought Jake was on Columbia River Caucus.
Yeah.
And yet you're doing the tour.
You're going on the tour?
I signed for it, but I didn't know if you were.
Good.
No,
Good
no,
be
no.
done. I've got so many
Well, that's
conflicting
what
meetings. I wasn't
you're
gonna
on
do the
Timber
tour.
counties in Columbia River County, so I'm trying to figure out why somebody that's not on that committee is
I-
going on a tour.
I think it's great if she wants to
I'm
go on the
learning
tour. And
because the year is
next
coming.
year,
That's
I'm not
exactly
gonna be
right.
on it. So
Yeah.
are you gonna plan to go to the meeting as well for the caucus meeting?
I would like to.
Please, I've got conflicting. I was trying to figure out how
Okay.
to fit it into my schedule, but if you can do it, I wasn't gonna be able to go on the tour anyways, because I
that's
think
great.
it's in.
Are you, just for clarification for all of us, are you now turning over Columbia County's caucus for the rest of the year to a new delegate, or is this just a one-time thingy?
I think it's just for
We
you
have
to
done
learn.
this before where it's a one-time thing for education. and-
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm just trying
As
to
long as we have a
I'm just
commissioner
trying to
here.
figure out what's going on.
No, I
So if I know, I'm good.
glad you're going, glad you're gonna do it. I mean, we used to have staff that would actually go to a lot of the Columbia River Caucus meetings and be involved because you've got Columbia River Caucus, then you've got the Wasack side, then you've got Columbia River. I mean, there's like 3 different Columbia River groups. Not including the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association. I mean, there's just a lot of different stuff. Because there was the big group, Columbia River group, and then the counties created their own group because the bigger group doesn't necessarily match what the counties want. And then you've got ecologies group. I mean, there's just a lot of different stuff, but
Well aware. I was just trying to get
Well,
clarification.
and just for the future too, sometimes it's been so controversial of 2 commissioners in one place at once.
Well, that's what I said.
But if you're
if
not
that's the
visiting and
case,
you're across the room from each other, you can.
as long
yeah.
as neither one of you are talking, or as long as both of you are not
Are
talking county business. One of you can, as long as the other one doesn't say a word. But
Exactly.
I just wanted to make
You're
sure
not
that
the
there
rep.
wasn't gonna be an issue. If there was, fine, we just notice it and we're good to go. I just wanted to make sure it was,
no,
everybody knew what was going on. And we could notice it if needed. So
you just got
I'm fine. I
you
don't-
just got a new email about it? Oh, the tour schedule from Laura that just came through.
I haven't looked at it yet today.
But no, I was just looking for clarification and I got it. I'm fine. No issues.
I don't see your name on there. Oh, there it is.
I don't know why my name's on there, but I swear to God, especially Paul Jewell, I get everything from Timber counties. And I feel
He
sorry for
sends
you
it to
guys.
everybody. I
And he
think.
sends the calendar link and then 2 minutes later, it's an updated calendar link. And then a
Yeah,
week later, it's an updated calendar link.
It messes
It's-
up my schedule all the time.
It's
Always
like,
messed up.
dude, just get it right before you send it. So you don't need 5 of them. But yeah, no, they all get funneled through here.
I won't even say anything about another one that changes all the time. And at least when I know.
Which one?
I can't.
Oh, okay. I don't get those.
Calendar just.
Well,
does
I would
this.
think, Timber counties and Columbia River, whoever our appointee is would be on that email list. I didn't realize that all commissioners were on. And it's not like I
They
wanna
just
send them a
want
notice
everybody to
saying,
be
please
educated."
remove me from your.
You could. I'm just interested and I know the future's coming and Jake won't be here, so. Just learning.
Which also goes back to, we have a lot of massive things like the squirrel and that we don't have nobody's working
No
on
plan.
this. There's no plan, nobody's working on these things, so.
A while back, we talked about figuring out someone who we could educate and move forward, like Keaton or someone who, but then we talked about leaning heavy on our timber partners and also groups with Paul and people to help us just fill that gap till we decide.
Yeah, I still worry about the things that are slipping through the cracks that we're not even aware of with ecology and fish and wildlife and everything else that we used to
Going on
comment.
without us.
You know. And then in a year or two, we'll see the results of things that we weren't at the
Go, where'd
table
this come
for.
from?
Yeah,
Mhm.
but that's life.
I would agree with that. A year or two from now, we will see the results of things that we were not at the table for. Or that didn't do anything about.
We got a lot of heavy stuff coming.
Don't disagree.
One thing, about earlier when we were during public comment, the House Bill 17, whatever that was, 1756. 1756, that only affected the state's portion. It didn't affect the local portions of the property tax. So the part that went, so the state portion is the state schools. Some of that came to the county and then got spread around to this county schools, so it didn't go to the state schools, so it's in its own right, it's its own weird tax shift, which I'm surprised that Chris Radical didn't have a big issue with.
The who's?
The superintendent of public education. Because if it's the state's portion, which granted,
Took more out of the schools.
it took the state's portion, which is the schools, and then shifted it to the counties, the tribe, and the local schools. It was, I don't know how it works. And then there's also there's still organizations and groups that think that it doesn't just apply to the state's portion, that it applies to the local portion. So it hasn't been through the,
Until they don't get their money.
right. Well, I mean, it was a Band-Aid stopgap to try to appease groups that, you know, remember when we went up there and we're like, here's the way that we think the pill should be, and then industry got a hold of it and ran it on their own.
But, well, that's kind of the kicker is I hope that whatever option of legislation goes in there, it is clearly worded to give counties the ability to negotiate with the solar, because not all counties are the same, not all solar is the same, not all energy is the same. It shouldn't be a one-stop shop answer. Even if you change it to, oh, it's the income method. Okay. It should be, or could be the income method. It gives more choices. Because some counties might like it the way it is.
But
Some counties might want it the other
do
way.
you want to give that choice to the county or to the company? Because right now, the way it is it's
Right,
it's
that's
usually
my
given
point.
to
It
the
should be a
company,
county choice
not the
to
company.
either choose or negotiate with the company
I
for
agree.
a whatever, a PILT or whatever else. But technically, even if there's a PILT option, the county should be able to say, no, we're not interested in a PILT option, pay your taxes. Done.
Okay.
If the county wants to negotiate into a PILT option and they're willing to accept 90 cents on the dollar or 10 cents on the dollar, that's up to each county. I don't want it written in the dang code that it's 72.4 cents. Each county should have that ability I don't want to give up control to some state bureaucrat making some legislative change. That's where I'm going.
I'm with you on county, local jurisdictional control, always have been, so I'll definitely make sure that's part of it.
Yeah, it just kind of like flexibility in the document and not steadfast. This is how it is. Cause I wasn't opposed to the PILT idea when that, whatever number that was, 1738 or whatever the heck it was, came through a few years ago. I was opposed to the way they worded it that got them to pay about 50%. And no negotiation, no nothing. I mean, we can accept it or we cannot accept it. Which just means we're not going to accept it, or most people won't, which means it's a stupid piece of legislation. If there was some negotiation where we're like, well, maybe we'd take 65, you know, then it might work. Some counties might be fine with it. I don't know. But that's kind of where I had my problem with that piece.
No, I'm with you. But also at the same time, you know, we're asking for legislation from the state legislature and the governor who, I mean, we all saw what the governor just did, so you know, it's an uphill battle.
They'll have to fix it at some point because counties like ours that, especially if you start getting bigger projects, whether that's 10 years from now, when that PILT really starts affecting, or that tax shift really starts affecting, it isn't going to happen in the first 5 or so years. Not any kind of noticeable number. It will all happen at the end of life. At the end of life, they will have to come up with some kind of remedy fix. But to try to say the legislature is going to fix it before it turns into a dumpster fire would be,
Not without us pushing it.
it would be not something that they normally do. Fire before they do anything. But they will have to do something eventually,
Maybe.
or they're going to bankrupt every Green County is what they're going to do.
Well, technically, it doesn't bankrupt the county. It bankrupts the people who pay taxes.
Bankrupts everybody that, yep, paid the taxes so that the energy company didn't have to after a period of time.
Madam Chair, if we don't have anything else before us, I'd make a motion to recess for the lunch hour so I can sit down with Mr. King.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you.
Documents are
Yes. I'm
ready
gonna
to
go
move that
find
way.
a. Can I go ahead? It's 59. Okay. Good afternoon. We're going to call the afternoon meeting of the County Commissioners back in session. All three commissioners are here, and we're going to give 5 minutes real quick to Jeff Renard from the Columbia Gorge Regional Airport for an update. Did you want to do an update, or would you like us to just kind of? Jeff has a
Is there-
request for some transfer, some funds with our partner, the City of the Dalles. And it's a business relationship between the City of the Dalles and Jeff, but there was leftover residue from a grant that
Revenue.
could be moved with our permission to another airport to use it rather than send it back. And that's Jeff's ask for the day, I believe. Is that correct?
Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I apologize. Yes, there, in our 2021 North Apron grant that it was being closed out as I came into the position of airport manager. There was what they call recovered funds. It was revenue that didn't get spent through the grant, and we had no other open grants available to move it forward into going forward. And so either way, we lose this money back to the federal pool. Something that the FAA the Northwest regional area has allowed us to do is direct it to another Northwest airport if we see fit. If not, it just goes back to DC, and then they put it into the national pool. And my suggestion from this end was to keep it as close to home as we could. And if Goldendale was a NIPIAS airport, I would suggest we put some money at Goldendale, but they're not eligible. So Hood River's our nearest airport that could actually take advantage of these funds. And
Okay.
that was the document that was originally sent through from the FAA did not have a requirement of you guys' signatures, but given the partnership, I like to make sure that the airport is very transparent in all of our business is done across state lines. And you guys are well aware of everything that I'm doing here as well. And I just wanted you informed on that.
And I appreciate that. And the City of the Dalles has approved this already.
They have. I have
Okay.
their signed copy here with.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Renard? No? So,
We need to, I just got handed something.
yeah,
I just got handed something with our signatures on it, so we made something.
that's it.
Jeff, the transfer, is it dollars that we actually have in hand, or is it dollars that's reimbursement?
It is, we never received the money. It was just money that was allocated through the grant. So we had a $275,000 design grant. We did not use all of the funds when I submitted for reimbursement in that grant. So they're just left hanging in that grant with the FAA. We've never touched the funds.
And Hood River, what grant in Hood River are they planning to use it on?
I do not know the answer to that. It was just trying to keep it local. I know they have a couple of up and coming AIP grants that they would be able to move it into, because that was the project manager, Mary Vargas with the FAA. Her suggestion was somebody like, I mean, I could easily move it to Prineville, but she suggested Hood River, knowing that the way some of the budget shortfalls have come.
Okay. I've got no issues with it, Madam Chair.
Neither do I. Thank you. Any questions? Nope, Mr. Christopher signed, so you're good.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate
We
that
do,
you guys
we
get me
do
in on
need a
such short
motion.
notice.
The clerk is saying we need a motion, so.
Oh, it's in front of, you want to make the motion over there?
He's handing it back.
All right, Madam Chair, we have before us a transfer of $6,509 to the Hood River Airport via the FAA process. And this is with regards to expiring funds from our 2021 FAA grant. My motion is to approve that transfer and help out our neighbor.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all for getting me in. I really appreciate it.
All right, then we'll give it back to her this afternoon. Good afternoon, Senior Services with Sharon Carter.
Hello. So, one of the items that I wanted to talk about that's been talked about before is, applying for, one of the Washington State Department of Transportation grants, or I should say two, in considering one might not. If one isn't successful, the other one, maybe, and both of them might not be successful either. They're both competitive grants. So, there's been requests for a number of years, and we have I've spoken with the board about applying for a connector fixed route transit service that would connect the east and west fixed routes. So we have our Goldendale to the Dalles route that crosses over through Dallesport, and our White Salmon Bingen to Hood River routes that have been running since 2018. And there's been a request and need to actually have another route that could work as a connector route that would run between White Salmon Bingen and travel through Lyle and go to Dallesport and possibly over to the Dalles also, because we're looking at timing with those connections and having some additional time. So, and I know the community council in Lyle has asked on a lot of different citizens. We get frequent calls about for a lot of different routes, but very much so for that connector route. And there was also so I was having some discussion, I know the issue with the board in the past has been the matching funds, because there's no grant that provides 100% funding. And currently the board has felt they're at their maximum with the funding for the existing services that we have going on. So I'd been talking with different, partners and agencies trying to see, well, how might we, fill that gap? Be able to provide the matching funds in order to do this. And Kathy Fitzpatrick with MCED had found, they actually, MCED and Link in Wasco County had been awarded a grant through Oregon Department of Transportation to providing some funding where Link was going to look at doing just a 1 day a week route over to Lyle, specifically to serve Native populations there, to get access over to healthcare and services over in the Dalles, from Lyle, because that had been shown as a need and a desire. So Kathy had we communicated both with Washington State Department of Transportation and ODOT to see, well, she said it made much more sense to look at if there was the ability for us to actually have daily service, and daily meaning Monday through Friday, which is what our current routes run. is if that connector route, if we could actually do a Monday through Friday service, and that would provide definitely a lot more access for folks in Lisle. And that they could look at providing that match that was needed in order to make that happen. So both Washington State Department of Transportation and ODOT indicated that that would be acceptable use of those funds. If that was in terms of providing match to a grant that we would apply for. And again, that would be funding that would be for the biennium. The grant is with both WASDOT grants, either RMG or the consolidated grants are 2-year grants. So it would be for a biennium. And so the way Kathy had indicated that they could do, MCAD would do like an MOU with Klickitat County Senior Services that would then provide that 30,000 that they have in order to provide match to provide that service. Again, if we are successful, if you're okay with me applying for the grant first, and then if we're successful in achieving that, they have 30,000 to do for match for that biennium. That doesn't quite meet the need when we're looking at 20%. RMG requires a 20% match. But we aren't, I have the ability to do in-kind match from the county because, you know, we get our physical space here and in White Salmon, our vehicle storage, are a lot of different things with the county that we've, that I would look at getting updated in terms of kind of what our square footage is. And there's an in-kind valuation plan that I can get approval from WASDOT that we would be able to utilize our match in terms of in-kind. So it's not cash that the county is providing, it's already services that are being provided. And I can count those to meet that match requirement in the grant. So that's what the plan would be with this particular one. And I know some of the discussions before have been, well, what about you get that grant for 2 years and then after that, 2 years is up, you're going to be coming to us wanting, you know, money to fund this service. And we're pretty confident that we can secure ongoing, you know, there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees even that in our existing grants that there might be slashes to federal and state budgets that we, you know, things can change with different administrations and that too. But based on conversations we have with some of the, and Kathy specifically has with MCAD and part of Gorge TransLink, there's a advisory committee that consists of the different tribal nations that we're really hopeful that we might be able to, you know, task them with helping us locate more funds, because, you know, part of the strength of the application will also be addressing that connectivity for our different in lieu treaty sites along, you know, the corridor. So that way, you know, our 2 existing fixed routes and then our connect would really make a bit more seamless connection for folks that are coming from the west of the county and may need to get up to Indian Services, Indian Health Services in Toppenish and that too, because connecting to Goldendale, they can get on Pato Public Passage and get to Toppenish and connect to Yakima Transit. So, and then on the Oregon side, obviously as well, there's the connections with the transit there. And part of, you know, that grant from ODOT Link will be providing more of their transit up to Celilo and some of the areas there. So I'm coming to the board to find, you know, to get permission to see if it's acceptable for me to apply for funding to add more public transit in Klickitat County.
Okay, somebody else? Question. Is there any guarantee with the grant that if we accept the grant, we have to provide services beyond the 2-year biennium.
No,
So if we have full funding that we don't have to like give you any money for 2 years, but in 2 years from now that match falls apart, that board can say, sorry about your luck. And we move on, and they're not saying, well, now you gotta pay us back for the buses and, or any of that kind of stuff.
so the grant is requesting funding for 2 years. The match that they're offering would be providing that. So if we're awarded the grant and they provide that match and we do that 2 years, we have that funding.
Right, I'm saying if that funding 2 years from now to continue the program falls apart, and you have to come here to that board, this, whatever the next board is,
Yeah.
and ask them for 30,000 or 70,000 to continue the program, and they say, sorry, don't have the money.
Yeah.
Does the grant have wording in there that it's too bad, so sad, you have to continue it because we gave you the money to buy buses and all this?
Yeah,
other
no,
stuff?
it would actually be a new application anyway, because the funding is only for a biennium.
So we're only guaranteeing that we're providing the service for 2 years.
Correct. And even, and you're not really doing, it's not, I guess, a guarantee, because part of the language on both sides, because there's language in there on WASDOT's side as well as on our side, that if somehow
Well, that's my question.
there's some issue that happens because.
If I use their money to buy a bus for 160 grand and then 2 weeks later go, yeah, sorry, we decided against it. And now we're gonna use that bus to, I don't know, do something
No,
else.
so they're only.
They'd probably have a problem with it.
They're only providing 30, they would only be providing 30,000. The bulk of the money is coming from the WASDOT grant.
Right.
And then we would provide the in-kind for the difference of that. So, and I did double check to make sure that 30,000 didn't have any restrictions on whether it could only be operating or capital or whatever. And it was, and that's why Kathy had said it would be basically that MOU that they've determined that 30,000 is available now. And that particular money isn't available again after this 2 years. This was a one-time grant they had, and that's why I said that we will be working on additional, but there's no guarantees that we can secure that additional. We're pretty confident that we can get something together in the next couple of years for ongoing
See, that's
support,
another,
but there's no guarantees with any of it.
that's another
Yeah.
big worry to me is when you provide a service. I guess you have 5 people complaining that you need to provide a service. The minute you try to cut a service, you got 100 people complaining. So to me, it's scary to provide something that you may end up, or a future board reaches budgetary issues that might have to not do it anymore. I don't personally have a problem with it. I've told public health and everybody else that's hiring employees off grant that as long as they know when that grant's over, it's over.
Well,
And that this
all the
could
positions of the department.
be right. This could be the same way. So I guess for clarification, you're asking for permission to fill out the grant, and at this time, you're not seeing that you'll be asking us for $1 in match. You're gonna be able to cover that with in-kind services or
With the
square
cash
footage
that's
and
coming from
them and the rest of it
in kind and the grant with WASDOT.
So you're not asking for any money from us?
No.
Okay.
I'm not asking for any cash from you.
Right, right. No, that's just
At
one
this-
more thing I wanted to clarify.
Are we using that same in-kind on any other grant matches currently?
We're using right now on our dial-a-ride service, we use our volunteer in-kind. We have an evaluation plan that provides that in-kind volunteer support for that.
Okay. And so will this past 14 passenger van only be used between Dallsport and White Salmon? Or is it going to be used on a greater, longer path?
It would be dedicated to the route, doing the connector route. And so if I mean, it would be in use Monday through Friday, and then we would use one of our other Mount Adams vehicles to run that route when that one's being serviced, or if it breaks down, which happens with all. So
As always, for me, I just ran it down. It looks like not including the cost of the vehicle, when we look at the price per month on the operational expenses, you're about $8,600 a month. And so do you have $8,600 the worth of ridership that you expect to be on this route? Have you done any surveys to find the potential for usage on it? It's a fair amount.
Well, I mean, I don't know in terms of when you said $8,600 worth of value, I guess that depends on people, you know, individuals being able to express that the value they get from the public transit service. I do know that transportation is always one of the top issues that has come up for years, and the lack of transportation in terms of people being able to properly access healthcare, food, you know, essentials, and especially in our county, when we're talking about low income, disabled, and seniors that have more limited access to, I see the benefits of being able to have more options available and more consistent regular transportation available too for folks. And so I don't know about, you know, in terms of a value and then again, I can forecast, I can let you know, our ridership even on our existing fixed routes has been showing consistent, steady increase. You know, we got the pandemic was a big hit, but we're showing much faster recovery than even the national averages are showing for transit. And when I compare just even the first months of this year to last year, we're already showing a almost 70% increase in, so we're having an average ridership right now on the fixed route. Let's see what I had for, so we've had an increase of 131 riders a month on the West End route compared to last year, and 126 riders a month on the East End compared to last year. And so, you know, there's always challenges too when you first, you know, start a service. It's gonna, you know, with people getting to know it and then being, you know, comfortable and feeling like it's working. But and I wouldn't say I just have a few people ask. I mean, it's a consistent issue that comes up in a number of the different stakeholder groups and committees and things that I participate in. And transportation is always a big deal and impacts more ages people, because I'm not talking, I know it's in the senior services department, but we transport people of all ages. I mean,
Is your $8,900 number, I'm assuming you're taking into account the overall expense that essentially the state will be paying for. Although I hate to say the state because they just raised the taxes on our people to get the money to give us back to
Fuel
provide the
tax.
service. But in the same regard, even if you choose to not take the service, they're still gonna tax our people. They're just gonna give it to a bus route in Spokane County or something, so.
well, I'll tell
I'm
you
trying to
that,
figure out.
yeah, all the
where you're coming from.
services within my department and the grants that we get and access, I mean, you could choose to, not provide those services and let
Right, and
let that go elsewhere in
the
the state.
state's not gonna like lower our residents' state income taxes over it.
So
Or
if we're,
state, yeah.
you can choose not to access the grants that are available and not have that service. But I also feel like, status quo is not, when you're looking at the population has increased in Klickitat County, the aging population is increasing in Klickitat County, and there's, in terms of senior services advocacy, there's a lot of benefits for improved transportation for seniors, but for all ages. And
Questions anymore?
No, she knew exactly what questions I was going to ask about ridership numbers, and the same thing I always ask.
So are you going to be providing the in-lieu site services rather than?
so this would be in place of Link doing a 1 day a week thing.
Okay,
They give us that $30,000 to match grant.
I see.
that
Okay.
provides service
Where that
5
came
days a
from.
week, so
Okay.
people actually get more transit as well.
So if you're asking for verbal, I'll give you my verbal, I'm a yes, but in the same regard, when the grant goes away.
Right,
I won't be a
right.
yes.
And that's with all, yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, we all know that when the dollars dry up, so do what we provide.
Well, and then the other catch is that I now have you on record saying that you're not gonna ask me for any money for this. In the
For
next
this
2 years,
specific-
for this 2 years, correct, so. I'm gonna hold you to that.
So that's, yeah, in the budget, that's a different. we're
That's a
not
different,
budgeting.
that's a different, the other rowdy stuff is that this route, this grant,
Yeah.
you're not
So-
asking for more.
And then obviously, with the grant that involves, we'll have to increase drivers, but it's not increasing any of the admin staff. I mean, it's me and staff, because we're taking on more actually to do that work, because and that administrative costs are within that, but it would be adding drivers because we wouldn't have sufficient drivers to add a whole nother route, and that's what's in the grant.
Clarification, you're not asking me for more.
No,
money.
it's
Jason,
right,
that's
right.
Right, I'm just. It's one of those, you have I keep trying to teach you, quit while you're ahead.
Okay. So yes, it's, I can apply for these grants on behalf of the Klickitat County. Okay. Okay, great. The next item I had was regarding the Samsara.
Is this the fleet management software stuff that we're talking about?
Yeah, so we've had them in several of the Mount Adams, vehicles, and it's great because it's I think good for risk management wise, as well as preventative maintenance, because it will alert us when there's something with because it has the connector that feeds into the system. We've also been able to review footage and or speed and alerts if there's a heavy braking, and it also helps to track the route on the bus if we have somebody calling saying, has the bus already passed my stop or whatever. So we have been utilizing it, but we would like to have it in more of our vehicles. One isn't working correctly. So I'd sent a request into IT and they indicated that in order, because there's 4 that I requested, it's like a $3,000 cost because of the licensing and that. And so I wasn't really understanding, because the other ones we didn't pay for. I don't know if that was just the county paid for that in terms of a certain number, or is there, I don't have a line item like within my budget to cover that, to be able to add. So it was for 4 vehicles, and
Well, and
the quote is about $3,000.
where I remember that the actual equipment, there wasn't a cost, but it was a monthly service fee.
It's the licensing, so it's
Kind of a
it's
thing. So this number seems way larger to me. Because it's like we did a lot of vehicles. And it was only like 8 or 9 grand off the top of my head, and then this much for this many. I would, before I could give you an answer, I do believe the program has value. But I would need you to work with the IT director or the IT staff to come
Find out
give me
why
a
it's-
presentation and remind me what the original charges were and why this number is so much different, and give me a little more education before I can make a decision on that.
Okay. I'm sorry, the AC is really loud. Like I need my sweater on.
Thought it was scaring you, you're
Okay.
really shivering.
No, I'm like blowing full blast right here.
Yeah, I don't know about them, but that's where I.
No longer
give you a
considered the
decision.
hot seat.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not sweating, so that's good. Okay, so I need to, okay,
Yeah, one of them has got to come in and tell me why this number is so high compared to what we paid or authorized when I first got approval for the program 2 years ago. Because we did a lot of vehicles for a fairly low amount of money that I'm remembering.
okay. I will talk
But
with
even
them.
at that time, I wanted the thing in every county vehicle. So I do think it is a valuable program. I'm just very curious on that price.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it the same program that we have for our fleet software? Okay.
Okay. The next update is just on Volunteer Connections program, just, our volunteer coordinator Isaiah has been out on medical leave since about January. I'm not sure yet when he'll be released to return, but, also, that Volunteer Connections grant was originally just a 2-year grant, and we were very clear that it's only 2 years, and.
We were
they-
hoping they would.
They did extend it an additional year, but they've made it clear they won't extend it past this year. And so, so I will be working on, how to transition, because we obviously still, there are components of the program that will continue. I mean, and our volunteers are always a big core of our need. It's just unfortunate not to be able to have a staff person to be able to do that, because it makes a lot of difference in terms of managing. And so, and Norma, my operations manager, has been, helping and filling in with some of that and onboarding some new volunteers, because that's always quite a bit to do. And so, just as a heads up on that, we will, there were other grants that I looked at to try and access, but unfortunately, a number of the federal ones were too administratively burdensome to unfortunately access, and had. So continue to watch for that and look at that, and we will still be able to continue volunteer reimbursement services for kind of some of the friendly visitor items in terms of mileage reimbursement for volunteers, just not at the level, that we had thought or hoped there wouldn't be. Some of the other things in doing some of like the cleanup or outreach of it, that's going to be definitely more minimized ongoing, because we have to have a person, and I just don't have another body to extend to that. So we'll be working on that transition and having some things in place for that transition into 2025, but and still looking for potential grant opportunities and funding opportunities. So and then nutrition, I will be submitting for next week's consent is a new lease agreement for our Lyle meal site. I think I mentioned it at a previous meeting that Lyle, we rent the space in Lyle at the Lyle Lines Community Center to have the senior meal every Tuesday. And we've paid the same money for the last 20 years, and they need to increase that amount because their costs and that have gone up to maintain that building. So they're doing actually just did a lease agreement that's similar to the same one that we have for Goldendale, that kind of has into it that we'll reevaluate on a periodic basis, so we don't go so long where it's not looked at. Unfortunately, that means that that lease amount is going to double because it's been so long since that increase, because we were typically, it's been about $500 a month. It's going to go up to $1,000 a month.
And this is 1 day a week.
It's
4 days
every
a month.
Tuesday. And so, the Goldendale one is twice that, because it's 2 days a week in Goldendale.
What do
But
we
Lyle
pay
is
for
just
that?
one. Goldendale is $2,000 a month. So the benefit too with Lyle, actually though too, is Lyle has very strong volunteer support of that. So they completely volunteer staff it, the cook. Well, we have a paid cook in Goldendale and White Salmon.
That makes
Because they have a
sense.
volunteer cook in Lyle, volunteer cook team, a whole nutrition team and cleanup and all that. So, and it provides for us to have all the use of all the different features and what it is, we were even with the monthly amount that had been going for 20 years. I mean, it ended up being less than what they get for other private rentals.
What
and
is the attendance rate on the
So-
average Tuesday?
so
'Cause
we're
the median
at,
age in Lyle is 69 years old, believe it or not. So it doesn't surprise me that you have a lot of volunteers. I'm just kind of
yeah,
curious.
and there's always been a great you know, we have good volunteers at all sites, but Lyle is definitely really great. So currently Lyle has about 157 meals being served a month.
Okay.
Out of there. Goldendale is 809 meals and White Salmon 561 meals a month. And again, White Salmon is twice a week, Goldendale's twice a week, and then Lyle's once.
The Lyle's about 40 a week.
So
Do we have that in our budget to be able to? add
So,
that
yeah,
500?
I mean,
That's a lot of money a year.
right.
$6,000.
So, you know, we definitely don't, I mean, there's less funding that's coming for nutrition out of, this year, but compared to what we had during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, all the costs were really being covered but pre-pandemic, it's usually been the county has subsidized that, and following the pandemic as the county is subsidizing. It is within the budget in terms of anticipating what our costs and expense are. But it's out of that allocation that's been prescribed for senior programs. Knowing that the pandemic money was gonna go away, you know, we had less of it last year, and that's why this year we were gonna need the money at pre-pandemic levels too, because the extra pandemic money was gonna go away and
for
be
you,
exhausted, so.
Budget person over there, that's $10 per person per meal. Is what that increase breaks down to.
I worked out $6 per meal per person.
No way. I did it in my head, so let's see if I.
And that's on the $1,000 for
Okay, I did it for the
157.
500 difference.
Oh, then it should be 12. Or 3.
Why we're nitpicking over funny numbers.
But you do have budget this year.
Oh,
So I guess we can do it by the whole.
So would your new rate start next month? or
July.
July.
At first was what is the lease agreement, so that'll come to consent agenda for signature on.
Sounds like we're gonna have to raise our rates on all the community councils and everybody else who uses our space all the time. That's $1,000 a month for.
Do the
Nice
seniors,
building.
when they come in and get a meal, I understand you have a donation-y system, but does it ever get used? Do people pay $3 or?
Yeah, actually, I would say, you know, from what we've heard, you know, compared what like ads was always said that our donation rate has probably usually been higher than a lot of areas. It's just a suggested donation is what
Right.
required to offer that, and it's currently for seniors 16 older $350. Anybody that's not a senior has to pay $650 for the meal, which
I
is
didn't
still a
get
bargain.
charged.
Oh,
They let me eat for free.
special favor.
That was before I took office.
Yeah.
So you know, it wasn't a campaign special favor. It was before I took office.
Okay. So we're
Well,
running
I
a
can take
little
you
over.
350 anytime. Well, you're 650
Yeah,
actually.
you need to catch up now.
Interest too, right?
Anything else? Any questions?
Yeah, this is kind of one of those.
Got you over a barrel.
We don't, don't really have a choice. You either anger 40 people a week to save $100. Once you provide a service, you have trouble removing a service. So,
Well, and I will say though that again, at the Lyle site too, it isn't, you know, it's not paid staff cooking and doing, so there's a lot of savings in there versus actually having, you know, it could be a lot more.
well, and what you have to save you is when I talk to people in the community that complain about this or that, or whatever else, they're not usually complaining about senior services or the programs you offer. Or when they do, they're complaining about, why are we paying taxes for the bus service? And you explain to them how little they actually pay for the bus service, and then they're like, oh, all right.
Yeah, there's no
So,
direct tax
yeah,
for the service.
I
mean,
I don't hear people say, cut senior
Grant.
services.
Yeah.
So
Because
you're on the board there.
if we don't apply for it, it's other areas are gonna have that service, so.
long story short, you have my approval
Okay, great.
for the Lyle thing, and yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything that you have or any questions regarding any particular programs or services or issues from the board?
No, I just appreciate that you don't bring us wildfires every week and problems, and because we don't have the bandwidth for any more.
Well, she's never
Feel
came
like
and
you're-
said,
I'm
"This will
hired, that's what I was
cost you
hired for.
everything," And then showed back
Just to
up and
track.
said, "Oh, by the way,
It'll cost you this
Stay,
much more,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna
So
hold
true.
her at that, and with that, I trust her more to say fine."
They're recorded, the meetings are, the playback, right?
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
I think we have Joel Madsen. Is he on Zoom?
Oh. here's something, 'cause I-
Yeah. So we'll let you go ahead, Joel. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Good to be with you this afternoon, and just want to audio check. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. And pleasure to be here with you this afternoon, provide a little bit of update on the West Klickitat Assisted Living Facility and allow you to ask questions that you may have about the development. I also just want to acknowledge I'm here in my capacity representing Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation, and wanted to let you know that I'm transitioning from my role as Executive Director of the Mid-Columbia Housing Authority and Columbia Cascade Housing, and we'll be supporting that transition over the next couple months, and really, focusing on some of the development activity of Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation, certainly in that time as well. So again, glad to be here with you this afternoon. I'll start with some exciting news, and with that comes gratitude for you all's support in this last legislative session in Washington State. The Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation was able to receive a direct appropriation of $3 million investment from the state legislature for the purposes of the West Klickitat assisted living facility. So again, thank you for your support for that appropriation. And we just started discussions with the Department of Commerce about the contract that's associated with that direct appropriation. Also, want to extend my gratitude for your support of, we had submitted earlier this spring through Senator Cantwell's office, a congressionally directed spending request to also help, we hope, fill the budget gap of the capital needs for this facility. So obviously the federal budget process is still in flux. So we're patiently waiting to see if we get some positive news with that request as well. And again, thank you for your support for that congressionally directed spending request. Really, those are the latest kind of updates that we have. And I started with that gratitude and want to just acknowledge that we continue to try to find the right capital stack to make this development work. The organization is still committed to the 52 units, 36 of those is still the vision to have as assisted living, 16 units that would provide for memory care as part of the one facility that we continue to try to advance. At this time, we still anticipate utilizing USDA Rural Development as our primary lender, and are continuing those conversations with their community facilities program folks. I wish I could be here to say, here's the date we're moving dirt and we've got it all figured out, but I'm not able to do that. As I mentioned, we're still rounding out the capital stack that's needed to develop the 52 units for the assisted living facility. So I'll stop there and allow for you to ask me with any questions that you may have.
You came a long way this year for sure, compared to where we were a year ago.
This is Commissioner Christopher. I have a question for you that you may or may not know off the top of your head, and you may have given it to me, 3 years ago at I wouldn't say the start of this project, 'cause it's been longer than that. Do you guys have a breakdown? And if you did, is it a current breakdown with the new math to build on what the monthly charges would be for people using assisted living or memory care. Or a ballpark or something.
Yeah, Commissioner Christopher, thank you for that question. That is a bit of a moving target, so we'd have a range. I could offer you a range, but I don't have it at my fingertips. And also, I just want to acknowledge that a core goal of this development is affordability, right? That's why our organization is involved. So 25% of units, or 9 units, right, would be targeted to Medicaid, would be essentially Medicaid reimbursements, right? So that's the different than the private pay, right, portion. And those reimbursements rates, or the cost for services, are going to be different based on the Medicaid eligible units versus private pay units, right? So I want to acknowledge that. And honestly, I shouldn't even shoot from the hip on a number. I'll try to see if I can find something here while we're in the meeting this afternoon, but
Don't bother. I mean, I can guess. You helped me out with the 25 units for Medicaid, because I was trying to remember what the number was, and I was thinking it was only 9 or 10. So I'm very pleased for the 25. So don't waste your time getting a number, because I think you're absolutely right. It's a moving target when you can build and what the cost is and all that kind of stuff. So no worries. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Christopher, I do want to acknowledge, I mentioned 25% of the units.
Oh,
So
25%.
we're not increasing.
So
the
we are down at 12, which is what I remembered.
Joel, how old's your most recent cost estimate, and what kind of inflation and escalation factors did you put in that?
Yeah, so we are targeting, let me start with the end in mind. Commissioner Anderson, thank you for that question. We anticipate the total development cost to be 23.3 million at this point. And that is based off of an aged construction cost estimate with a few escalators in place. So, we're being pretty, I guess, we have built in those escalators, but we're not, we know that we need to go back and really flesh out the numbers before we're pushing toward the closing table. We have not done that with our contractor. I think it's about 1.5 years, if not 2 years, since we've done that. So we're just relying on the escalators at this point.
And how much do you need for your bridge to gap, so you can go get the loan right now?
Yeah, so historically, what we anticipate is that USDA Rural Development could fund or lend on about 65% loan to cost. So that's, approximately 15 million, right? So we are, based on the 23.3 million, around 3 million yet of a gap, despite having the 3 million appropriation from the spring, the 2.5 congressionally directed spending that we received from the 2023 federal spending bill. We still have that gap of just under 3 million, which hence the request for additional congressionally directed spending for this 2025 federal budget cycle.
Joel, do you know if we could, if the board so chose, if we could use any of our affordable housing dollars for this project?
We certainly would welcome that conversation. As I mentioned earlier, 9 units of the 52 will be targeted to folks earning at or below 50% of the area median income. So with that, that's clearly an eligible use of the affordable housing funds.
So it's one of those that I'd hate to pledge something to a project that you're not sure if a shovel will ever hit the dirt, but if it ever came down for crunch time and, our dollars could potentially make up that gap to make the shovel hit the dirt, that option I think is available. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you for that. And like I said, we're happy to discuss. And if we get down to that amount, that fund is not in the millions of dollars. It's in the few hundreds of thousands of dollars, if I recall correctly. So, you know, we get down to that point, we'll all be pretty excited and look forward to engaging that conversation. If you all could help get us to the finish line with that investment as well.
Joel, when do either our state or federal dollars that we have appropriated, when do those roll over and we lose those this time around? So what's our time frame on the game?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Anderson. So as I mentioned, we have the grant agreement that we haven't executed yet from the 2023 federal spending bill. So my understanding is that you have 3 years to enter into contract from those commitments. So that would be around December 2025 that a contract would need to be executed in order to keep that 2.5 million.
Okay.
And then there's 8 years beyond contract execution for expenditure, if I recall correctly.
I can present you an idea on how to come up with $500,000. And that would be the county contributed 660,000 for the property. Instead of putting it in White Salmon, you can put it in Goldendale where the property is much cheaper, and then the county can sell that property for 660,000 and donate the cash. Hey, there's $500,000, but you'd have to build it in Goldendale. That was probably too much for you to understand there, huh?
I'm tracking with you, Commissioner Christopher, and I think there certainly has been a lot of focus on this in the west end of Klickitat County, and just as a reminder, the Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation has a long-term lease with the county for this piece of property. From my perspective, if we can find that steal of a deal on land that you mentioned in Goldendale, let's talk, because eventually I think both are needed. But I don't necessarily think it wouldn't be my recommendation to kind of abandon the existing property in West Klickitat County. I think that there's even if for some reason we're not able to develop the assisted living facility, there's still certainly housing needs and opportunity with the site to help address the housing needs. As I mentioned at the beginning, our organization is still committed to the concept of the assisted living, and there hasn't been a change in that tune. But I would hope that we can do a both and, not swap one for another. I do appreciate your thoughts and your thinking there, and I'll continue to think about it.
Right, I get you, and I totally understand. It'd be nice to have one on both ends, but to get one is better than none. And no, where I was coming in is the last property that was this size that had the last assisted living on in Goldendale, the city of Goldendale, gave it away for $1. So yeah, that's a huge cost savings. So anyway, I digress. Next subject.
Well, if I may, I want to continue to address Commissioner Anderson, your questions about the funding commitments that we have. So I mentioned the 2.5 million, right? And how we have the 3 years to get into contract, and then I believe it's 8 years for expenditure. The Washington Department of Commerce, I don't have a clear answer for you yet, but I'd like to follow up with you. Again, we just got the contract documents recently for that appropriation, so I haven't been able to navigate through that. Usually, there is about a year from the contract documents that they are asking for us to get into contract, and there have been allowances for extensions under certain circumstances, but that time frame, I don't have a clear answer for you. Something I'm happy to follow up with you as we dive into those contract documents that we recently received. I also want to acknowledge that in part of that review, we're also looking to see if we're still eligible to go in for the competitive housing trust fund. Those fund offerings are usually available in the fall. So again, we're looking at that as another potential source for the development as well. We don't have any other commitments besides the county's land acquisition, which again, we've entered into that long-term lease. So we don't see that as an expiring commitment at this point.
Did we have dollars previously that did expire?
The development had 3.2 million from the Competitive Housing Trust Fund. And that had to be remitted back to Housing Trust Fund. I believe it was about a year ago.
No, we would have been there if we didn't have to remit that back, but we can apply for that same amount and be like, well, we've fulfilled the rest of our funding package. We're ready to go this time, we promise, we think.
If we were able to get 3.2 million back, we'd be able to go, right? With USDA Rural Development participating as well at that about 65%
Right.
loan to cost. So
Joel, have you got final designs on the building yet, or is it 5% design?
we're pretty far along in design development. I believe we're about 100% design development, but that's not final design. So quite a bit of investment from Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation in pre-development to have the design pretty well established, which also allowed for the conversations to advance with the state and this being a licensed facility. There's a lot of important conversations to be had with Department of Health as well as part of the development. So that's why we were really pushing the design forward. Again, significant investment made. Part of why there's kind of reticence or reluctance to really kind of give up on the plan that's still in front of us.
Yeah, I definitely hear where you're going. I was just hoping that we'd have final design so that we could go out and get an updated PCE with the last year and a half of, the costs that were probably far higher than your escalators if you only had like a 4% escalator. But I'd hate to get through the 3.2 million and then come back and find out, well, we actually needed 4.5.
Right. Excuse me. So in advance of that, if we are eligible to go in for the Housing Trust Fund this fall, we'd certainly be needing to do a refresh construction cost estimate to be able to justify that it would close the gap, right? And that we'd have the appropriate capital stack at that point.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you so much for zooming in, Mr. Christopher.
I have nothing further. Thank you, sir.
And I just wanted to say, Joel, thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you all these years. Thank you for all your hard work that you've done in the community. It hasn't gone without being noticed.
Always a
Thank you very
pleasure
much.
to work with
I
you.
appreciate
Yeah.
your kind words and pleasure to have had the opportunity to work with you all and look forward to our paths crossing certainly down the road as well. So
That's great.
thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay. Bridge, you're up.
When he is done with Bridge, I did get an email back from Mr. Kavanaugh about the building and well thing that I can share with you. So.
Okay. I think I signed it.
Somewhere. Well, I think you both signed it, so.
You're safe.
Wing it.
So you guys have both had a chance to review it. This is letter of support for the Joint Transportation Commission for the state of Oregon for 105 million to close the funding on the Oregon commitment for the bridge. So it looks like both of you have already signed it. I just wanted to say thank you. We're getting signatures from everyone and everybody possible, and this is just the start of the fight. We'll be going back to Salem many times, and the Joint Transportation Commission will be coming up in September, and we'll give them a overview again of the bridge. But we've got to get these kind of dollars in place. So,
Been doing pretty good so far.
but I don't think it's a letter of support, so I don't think we need consensus or anything.
If you signed it, you have consensus.
Well, I did.
Since it's signed.
I don't know if there's an ask associated since it's already been done.
So unfinished business, did you have?
The well thing, I'm not gonna read the whole email. Regarding well drillers, the health department has a conditional release policy form in place. It allows for many exceptions to proof of potable water. It does not waive the requirement before occupancy, which we know. Covers lenders, how long it takes the well driller to drill the well, purators, no power at the well site. So yeah, technically you could still build your house without a pump in the well or even a well drilled. You just have to sign the form.
So were you hearing from people that weren't able
Yes,
to?
but I think they were running on old information that they came into the previous board and asked for that to be fixed. And it wasn't fixed. But I could swear we had addressed this and we had fixed this.
One of the thousands of decisions.
Right. And that's where I was, before I went there, I was just looking for reassurance.
Got it.
That we, in it, but the problem is, because it's kind of a county policy, it's not really a written commissioner's policy. We have to hope that whoever's sitting here a year from now remembers that kind of thing, because
Well,
we didn't do a resolution, we
well,
didn't change code.
As long as David has it in rule or so, or in policy, they have it in policy, then it should stay. It's it's
Well,
written
until-
down somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, it's
If
just,
there's a form, it has to be written down somewhere.
it's just the knowledge passing on part of it. Cistern essentially would be the same way. My only real weird thing about a cistern is how do you build a cistern before you build a house? Because the cistern has to have the engineering to pump to the house, and you haven't built the house yet. And if you put the cistern there, it really isn't plumbed anything, and now it's in the way of building the house. So
I mean, your cistern doesn't have to be on the house. It can be a ways from the house, and as long as you've got enough gravity.
why would you want it that far?
Because it's next to the road where you can dump the water in,
For elevation.
or you got elevation. Most cisterns are put on up above the house and not on the house.
Yeah.
Unless you're in Mexico.
Right, but part of it is the engineering and the inspection and the water sample to approve the cistern, but why would you get a water sample if it ain't hooked to the house yet? Because you ain't built the house. So there's a whole little weirdy there, but it, for the most part, it sounds like neither one of those are an issue.
I'm sure David could make it work.
Right, yep, no, and so it is. So I'm just clarifying that we're covered there. You're hot.
I missed.
Did
I guess
everything
the
over
one that I think we're all getting emails about right now is fireworks. Did you guys
there?
want to have
Yes, we do.
conversation? You know, it comes up, I think the discussion is every year
Usually by the same
about
folks.
this, from the same folks of asking about banning fireworks. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone's listening and the record knows that there's state law that requires a year. So there's nothing that we can do to ban fireworks this year. We could create a ordinance that could ban it next year, but we cannot ban fireworks this year. So just for those that are listening, and I know it was brought up, one of the emails said, well, Wasco County created an emergency and banned it. And I double checked with our emergency management and we can't declare an emergency and still ban fireworks, according to the law.
Right, and I would agree with you in your interpretation, reading the RCW. You have to give the sellers adequate time to not invest their life savings and then tell them that they're not allowed to sell the fireworks they haven't all stacked in a trailer. So you have to give a year's notice. Now, this board can ban fireworks next year and every future year if it so decides to do so. I can sit at my house on 4th of July and not even see a single firework all night if I wanted to sit outside and watch. Not a single one. I think it's based on where you live and the choices where you live. And with that, while I understand these people's wants and needs to ban fireworks, On the 4th of July. 4th of July is a day where we celebrate our independence and our freedom. And I find it kind of two-faced to restrict somebody's freedom on Freedom Day. So unfortunately, you will never catch me voting for a ban on fireworks. And, you know, the next commissioner that has my seat might have a different opinion than me. You can ask him. But that will be my take every year going forward.
Was there a time that Klickitat County did designated places only?
The cities, I believe, have the ability to do that. I don't
Seemed
know
like
I don't
Klickitat
think
did
that
that for-
the county itself can do it.
And the city doesn't Goldendale anyway, does not designate a spot. It does have people that show up to specific spots
Yeah.
and fire department tends to hang out there and whatnot, but it's not like we're setting a specific spot. Because the minute you do that and somebody lights a firework off a block away, you get 900 phone calls from their neighbors, illegal fireworks, they want law enforcement to go arrest somebody. So you can request that you go somewhere, but to designate it, all you're gonna do is cause emergency management and the police a million problems. And the other reason why everybody that I've talked to in law enforcement, everybody I've talked to in emergency management, and everybody I've talked to in firefighting has says, please do not ban fireworks. Because the minute you ban fireworks, you take everybody in the city that wants to light their fireworks and they go out in the country or up in the forest to light their fireworks, which is a far bigger risk of natural disaster than somebody sitting on a concrete pad in the city. So for all those reasons, that's another no for me.
I just wanted to bring it up for discussion. I'm not saying I wanted to, and I just wanted to give the
Okay,
reason.
Happy to
So
go
we're
on
on the
record to the
record.
public with where I'm at.
Let me double check. Do you have anything else for the good of the order?
Nope.
I have an insurance board of directors, sorry, not insurance, but Southwest Washington Workforce Development tomorrow. The agenda is nothing exciting, just budget, but if it changes, I'll give you an update next week. If it's boring, I won't give you an update. Unless they want $10,000 for a refrigerator or something, which they did in the past.
So I've got Thursday, the SWWA Regional Healthcare meeting at 10. But I also have the County Crisis Collaborative meeting at 10. If either of you would want to do sit in on the Crisis Collaborative,
Thursday.
feel free. Because that SWWA they only do it a few times a year, so I've got to attend that. But if not, that's fine too.
I'm good.
All right. That's my only, let's see. There's also a WSU pump.
I'll trade you. I'll do that one if you go to my insurance conference next month.
The whole conference?
Well, yeah,
Isn't that like 3 days?
it's 2 days. It's a day getting up there, but that's 2 days.
Where's it at?
The other side of Olympia. The non-populated side of the sound.
Well, Rex always told me that I should pick up that one.
Well, that's because it was the old insurance board that was once a year. It was a 1-day conference and half that day was spent playing golf and the evening was spent drinking whiskey and smoking cigars. So it was the best conference ever. It just cost us $700,000 a year more. So we saved 700,000. Now it's 3 conferences a year that's all work, no play, and also no fun. So he might have recommended you sat on the last board. I wouldn't recommend you.
Well, you made up my mind. I
This
don't
one's
think
different.
I'm going. And then there's a WSU pump storage meeting on Thursday at 11. I'm gonna be in my SWWA meeting. Hopefully I can cut out, but I didn't know if either of you were interested in attending that.
When I can't, I talked to them on the phone yesterday, though.
Okay.
About pump storage?
You talked with WSU or with Ecology?
Developers.
This is WSU's pump storage.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a whole, WSU is looking at pump storage area throughout the state.
Part of their green energy initiative of where siting is good for.
Proper siting and all that. I don't know. I haven't checked in because that's what I was gonna ask. If you talked to them yesterday, I wanted
No,
to see if they had,
'Cause I know I couldn't go.
there was a study done in the 70s on pump storage throughout.
Really?
Mhm. It was in the old Library of Natural Resources and Economic Development, and it was one of the first things I read when I started with the county, and I was like, wow, they were really thinking ahead in the I think it was 1970 it came out. And in 1970, the number one location for pump storage in the Northwest was here.
Like I said, they can do it now, even right across the river.
You don't have the height across the river.
Well, I can tell you with talking to them, Rye can do it across the river. They don't want to, but if it becomes too much of a problem here, they are gonna go there. So it's not a here or nowhere else option.
Well, there's a bunch of locations. It's just this was the
Which one's
highest.
best?
highest
Correct.
Value one. And that was one of the things that I was wondering is I wonder if we could find that old document, because I don't even know if WSU would have access to it, but it'd be an interesting thing to give to them. But after the move, I have no idea where it's.
Well, I was gonna say the fact that you found it then, I mean, our scanning and archiving and searching, maybe they scanned it.
No, we never scanned any of that.
It might be in
It's in
a
a
shipping container at the public works yard for all we know.
Keaton, if you're listening, you might be going digging. Other than that, do I have anything Monday? Well, it's all bridge stuff Monday. Other than that, I have nothing else for the good of the order.
Yeah, bridge stuff every week, or is it every other week?
About every day, multiple times. But yes, that and more. Okay, if there's nothing else, would you entertain a motion, Madam Chair?
Would, please.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting of the Board of Klickitat County Commissioners, noting that there is no workshop scheduled for June 13th. And I would like to say thank you to everyone who's still online and listening, and for all those fathers out there, happy Father's Day.
That's nice of you.
Forgot about Father's Day. I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.